actually leave it. You enter up out of like the pineal gland, and then you're out. And then you can hang around Earth for a while after you die, like as a soul, and you can like watch your funeral and like connect with loved ones and try to like and just like it's kind of like a celebration of your life, but you can also stay around for a bit when you're still in like Earth time.
Is that
And
like a
then
ghost?
So your pineal gland is like the vagina to your spirit.
No, the cockpit. The cockpit.
Is that where you go in and out of?
He's got vag brain.
I think you should trademark that, Jake.
Well, Gio, if they're exploring the world, does that make them a ghost? Because some people say, "Look, I feel my uncle or my grandpa or my peepaw in the house." Is that like
Well, I
do
mean,
you think maybe ghosts?
I guess I think of a ghost as more of like where there might be like more of a demonic thing going on, you know, like if or something kind of
Okay.
something of a
Gio,
darker nature. Whereas
how
that
cool
would
would it
just
be
be the spirit or the soul.
to make a T-shirt that's got like a guy's head that like has shows the brain and then it highlights the pineal gland, and the shirt says the pineal gland, the vagina of the soul. Maybe you could have like two legs coming out of the pineal gland, like spread eagle.
That's pretty graphic.
That would be a cool shirt, huh, Gio?
Wait, describe it again because you got me thinking about
Oh,
Alex Gray.
just, just like
Starbucks.
a head, just like a head, like a drawing of a human head that shows the brain and it highlights the pineal gland, and in big letters it says the pineal gland, the vagina of the soul, and it's got like two legs coming out the side of the pineal gland, and then like maybe like have like a soul coming out of it.
Well, it's already been done. So like here, I'm gonna post a few images. Look in the
Oh
chat.
no way!
Yeah, this is a good Theoria session going on right now.
Yeah.
Oh no, it didn't parse.
Yeah, why isn't that link? Copy image address. These Alex Gray.
Oh, I
Whoa.
see. It is kind of vagina-esque.
Vagina-esque.
That one's like an angel.
Hey, Eden, how can you disagree with reincarnation when Geo's clearly told many stories before about people being born and having memories and opening up a Coke machine with a special bang in a special way? Like, how can you deny reincarnation, man?
Thank you. Great question.
Boo this man.
Jake, look at this one too, dude. That does kind of have like at the third eye point where the third eye is like more shaped in that way.
Wait, which one? The one that you just posted that didn't parse?
Oh, my bad. I'm trying to post it here.
Like, there's no little kid getting born that's going to remember all the stuff about some old dude over in India.
That one. I just
Oh
posted.
yeah. Mm. Yeah.
There's
What
two.
are those what do you think are supposed to be like those things on the left and the right that they're holding, like what are they holding there?
Pine cones. One of them's a pine cone because of how the pineal gland.
No, but it doesn't look like it looks like a almost like a magic wand that they're holding.
Do you think it's a
The
pine cone? Or it
the
could be the
creature
bud of a lotus flower?
I'm talking about that one that's just like the face. And it's got like it looks like a bird on the left and the right almost. It's got like a beak.
I just looked where he had posted this. It was on X. This is Alex Gray himself, and this is what he wrote. This is this X post. It looks like it says, "A beautiful being, an art angel, appeared to me on the winter solstice a few years ago. The angel's feathers seemed like the arms of a bodhisattva. It offered a teaching about milking the pineal gland and using the visions to uplift people." And it says Solstice Angel 2023.
Interesting. Geo, in Good Vibes, how many people from maybe your research how many people are well publicized to have come forward to say, I've lived this life here at least once? At least there's
Nearly
got to be.
everyone in India.
I think a lot of people have had that deja vu experience, but the ones that like actually recount like very specific things is it's pretty uncommon.
Yeah, it's uncommon, right? So,
Dude,
so
look at
the
that one. Sorry, Eden. I know you talk about
Oh
how the Earth
yeah,
is
dude, that one is
Yeah.
very graphic.
like. Eden, look at that last one I just
But
posted.
it's supposed
Like
to
the
obviously
idea
it's
of
supposed to be
fucking.
like it's supposed to be like an eye, right? That's like because it's got the eyelashes. It's
Yeah,
supposed
it's
to
like
be
a
like
Yeah,
an
you got a
eyelid.
all
big
these are
ol'
all
Like the flat
candidate.
Earth on top.
These
Flat
are all
Earth's nice.
candidate Tool album covers.
Well, Tool just uses Alex Gray's artwork, yeah, because they're
So he's got the
they're
flat Earth on top there.
Gio, you've seen
Flat
the
Earth
flat Earth
curve.
on our eyeball, right?
well. That's why. That's why. I know I kind of interrupted, but that's why because I just posted it and it just made me think of
So,
that
yes.
because the head is like. I mean, the head is already like a dome, and I do think we're like a microcosm for. I mean, whether there is a dome or not, or whether we would even call it that, there probably is. There's some kind of like a ceiling dimension, just like there is to our head, and then the whole eyeball thing, and the lensing effect, and like at the atmosphere and all that stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that it overlaps, and then some of the points you've talked about with it as well. But I'm just saying that one shows like your head is a whole eyeball. You have like a flat Earth on your head. right
That's
there.
great artwork.
I
Yeah,
like a
thank-
flat Earth.
Dude, Jake, isn't a planar stationary Earth way cooler at the end of the day? Like, can you just agree to that? That it is way to have this like massive, awesome, amazing, like if you even if you want to call it mysterious plane that we live on, the sky is all doing what it's doing. Isn't that much more grand? I know. I
I
guess
mean,
you
it's
could try
kind
to
of like
say like,
living on a board game, right? It's like living on the game of life in real life.
yeah,
A
yeah.
beautiful board game.
No, he
I mean, I
feels
guess
safe
I mean
tucked
that there
away
are
in the
arguments
corner
for
of the universe.
there are arguments for the globe one saying that it's really massive and to like the creator actually made like this light years big, like huge thing. And that, I mean, that would be pretty grand if it was that big, I suppose.
Don't you feel? Don't you think that a baller would feel safe, like being tucked away in the corner of the universe, like it's like a real sort of a crutch to lean on, like something that makes you feel cozy and comfy and like tucked away?
I
Yeah,
mean, I think
maybe.
if we live in a God-made terrarium, there's nothing cozier than that, right? It's like you're the pet. It's like you're somebody's pet in this
No, you're
terrarium
well,
that they
why
keep.
would it have to be a pet though? This it would be like we were talking earlier about gold, like even matter right now. Like I think that every single thing that exists is being manifest right now, meaning it's being like it's actually being made in this moment. So
Every natural effect has a spiritual cause.
Yeah, but I mean, it's more like a pet because, like, well, at least if you believe like the Judeo Christian Abrahamic uh, stuff, right? Like, basically, like if you don't like how it looks, you call it just like you do like when you're breeding dogs. If it doesn't have the characteristics you want, you call the dog. You call the ones that you don't want.
This took a very
That's kind
dark
of
turn.
that's kind
yeah,
of what
this is
God
go.
does during the flood, right? Like he didn't like how the humans were working out, so he just called them like you would a dog that you're breeding.
Oh, I
All
thought
right,
you were saying
let me say,
call.
okay, that's a whole nother
Like
like
you
topic.
call a dog.
All right, that is a whole other thing. If you're talking about that kind of idea of a god, but
But like one other, can I just, this is quick, but from, if you're a globe Christian proponent, there's also something about saying that like the Christianity centers around Jesus and then God put the representation of Jesus, which is the sun, at the center. And I'm like a little bit surprised that that's not more compelling to, especially to like the language people, but
Yeah, that's a great point, P.
like,
Thank you.
why would we expect to be at the center when we're not the center of, we're not the center of the Christian plan. Jesus is.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I completely agree with you, and I think heliocentrism is deeply connected, like to through the Jesuits and other groups. It seems like along with whatever they've kind of taken of Christianity as well, and whatever one thinks that all is about, like where it all came from in terms of that. But that already is, I think, a thing that's been occurring. I mean, I've been saying that for years. Like heliocentrism is, it's like related to like patriarchy as well. and then the different religious traditions that can sometimes have like patriarchal bloodlines linked to them. But like the whole, you're saying the Son of God, like the actual Son, S-O-N and S-U-N and S-O-N, and putting the Son at the center is like worshiping Jesus. Is that what you're saying?
That was like the claim of that Zeitgeist
Yeah.
movie. Remember that was out like in the 2000s when they were talking about how it's like actually sun worship. It's just like a Christianity, modern Christianity is just sun worship.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
actually think the creator,
Kind of
if he
is.
was good, yeah, I would even
Pretty much is that.
say that the creator, in his ultimate wisdom, would include some sort of uh, relation to the stars, to Jesus as well, and what happened on Earth.
Because undeniably, even on the flat Earth, the sun is the source of life on the flat Earth, right? It provides the energy that keeps everything moving.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
It's a prime thing, but it not being the center is different though. Like making it huge and at the center and 93 million miles away is kind of a different. Like we just become this like thing that's orbiting around this central sun, whereas on a planar stationary Earth, the sun is actually more just like the life-giving features of the quintessence, the
But
celestial.
I mean,
Yes.
it's not that
And
much different, and you guys don't really know how far away it is either. So when all said and done, maybe on flat Earth, we determine that it's millions of miles away too. I still think that, and even with the distance, I think that still holds for like the Christian symbology.
I
Well, I
think in
mean,
the
they
Old
claim that people
Testament,
in the past like worship the sun and they link different gods and things to worshiping it. I don't know that I necessarily think all that history is true the way they say it is, but
it's not like I think in the Old Testament it said something about not to have these houses for God, like these churches or temples. But then what happened is we find out about Tartaria, and all the old churches that we see now were actually just converted from something else. So they sort of came around the same time as maybe our missing 1,000 years, and the New Testament and these churches coming into the picture when actually the churches weren't formed as a church originally. They're just founded.
well, they had
look what
temples
I
in
just
ancient
found.
Greece. Okay.
So if you're going to respond to that, I just want to post this real quick. I just found this Alex Gray. Jake, check this out, and everyone else, like it's like a dual pole. It's like a dual pole system.
By the way, Gio, does Tool like literally use his artwork?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, okay.
That's great.
I was gonna say it's so similar. I thought you were saying that like metaphorically.
No, Alex Gray. It's he's the artist that Tool has used on their
He's been on Rogan.
album artwork.
Yeah, the one that you posted where you can see like the muscles. I swear that's the cover of the Lateralus
Yeah,
album. I have that one on vinyl. Looks
they use Alex Gray's artwork. Yeah, like if you look on the inside of it, or I'm sure it'll give him credit.
Gio.
Well, yeah,
What
because
did
Alex
you?
Gray, like in terms of psychedelics, like he's been a major kind of thinker, visionary, etc. And then he does this artwork as well. So a lot of it is like psychedelically inspired, obviously, and so on. And then Tool, I don't know. I think they may have gone through different phases, but I knew a girl who actually like knew the guys in Tool, and she said they were getting like a lot of LSD. So if nothing else, they went through a phase. If they're not still doing it now, but so I'm sure there's some resonance that they had with Alex Gray's artwork and wanted to use it.
Gio, do you still listen to that type of music?
Tool?
Yeah, in rock and roll or heavy metal.
I mean, I like Tool all right. I never really got super into them, but they've got some good songs. I mean, they're definitely very talented. But I haven't been like deeply into Tool necessarily. But Pinky brought them up just because they use Alex Gray's artwork.
I just remember that one T-shirt that they had because a kid in my high school used to wear it all the time. That had like the wrench as the penis with the balls. You know that T-shirt? It was like very popular in the 90s.
Yep.
Mm.
You don't know what I'm talking about, Gio? You've never seen that one?
Dude, could you say it again?
It was a
posting
T-shirt that had a wrench that was like a penis with two balls at the base, and it said "Tool" on the wrench. You don't
No
remember
idea.
that
I don't
shirt?
know that one. I don't know. Are you trolling or are you serious?
No, they probably had a T-shirt like that.
Yeah, they did.
So Gio, okay, what
Here, I'll
about this?
post it in the chat.
Oh, thank you, Jake.
Oh,
Gio, I have
okay,
a quick
Oh
question.
maybe
no,
I've seen that.
Snacks beat me to it.
Yeah,
This was
yeah. I mean,
before.
that's
This
somewhat
was
familiar,
before
but
their LSD days when they were, just drinking and smoking pot.
yeah, could
They
be.
came up with this great metaphor.
It's multi-layered, Pinky, if you think about it, because the shape of it, and then the
Yeah,
name.
amazing. It's a tool. It's also a tool.
Yeah,
Like it's
and you're definitely a tool if you wear a shirt like that.
Do you remember
And
the
it's
Big
also
Johnson
money. If you
t-shirt?
read it backwards, it says loot.
Yeah.
Well, Gio, and I have a question for everyone here. No pressure. I don't want to be like Debbie Downer, but someone has to do it. I have two questions here for you guys to consider. No pressure. The first one is, let's say music that you're listening to. Let's say if you found out that the people who produced this music made some sort of satanic curse over it, would
Listening to the rap song where he's like, beat the pussy up, or wait till you see my dick. Hey, wait till you see my dick.
What song is that one?
You guys have
that
heard
made
those
you laugh?
songs?
No, I haven't heard the last one.
I'm not
I heard the first one. I haven't heard the last one. Can we get some more context?
I mean, I don't even remember what was in the song, but that's basically the hook of it.
Yeah, that's art,
Art
That-
comes in all forms, right?
I think you just wanted to say that on the live stream, so
He did for sure.
it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. All right. Well, anyways, yeah, no, music can definitely have like dark energies to it, connected to it, and in some ways, wasn't that
maybe-
Ian's original question? Is like, do you think? I mean, I don't think like necessarily. I guess it's just a wide range out there. Tool is a little bit dark, yeah. If you were mentioning Tool originally, they do have kind of a darker edge to them. And actually, I'm not really a fan of that part of them, but I like some of the I like some of the like technical parts of their music is good.
Thank you for answering. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm with you, Gio. I'm really selective about the music I hear these days. Older, flat earthers. So generally, that would be like a good combination, which leads to wisdom. So I think that's why he was probably focused in that documentary.
Well, yeah, I
Or
mean, I
chosen.
think at the time the guys doing that documentary, they were trying to go around and interview all the people that had some of the bigger channels and whatnot. So, yeah, I think that's why they like met up with him. And I mean, that whole documentary, like that was deceptively edited. They hacked it up and cut it up to make it look like something it wasn't. It's just a complete deception. I pretty much tracked Bob's understanding of the gyro throughout all of that. I'm not saying I know every single word he said, but he would have been much more on the side of many of us that are aware of this stuff, nowadays, and have been for years. He wasn't saying approved Earth rotation at all. So I've never heard him say that ever. And they just deceptively edited it and they cut it up to make it look like he said something he didn't, essentially. Basically, all of the science that was happening before the Einsteinian relativity came in. So in terms of like that the ether was the cause of that. And when he got that gyroscope, he wasn't in any way conflicted knowing that he would pick up the Sagnac effect. He talked about how they work in airplanes and how you have to like calibrate them on the ground to account for the 15 degree before you take off, because that 15 degree is there. It's related to the sidereal motion. He used to talk about that how it's related to the sidereal motion, like a lot of us discuss it and so on. For what it's worth,
what was he? Yeah.
so go ahead. Out
I
of
just
his
don't know
own
the context.
mouth though. It looks like New Perspective just posted. Looks like that's a 32-minute video I haven't watched that exact one. Maybe I have seen it in the past, but anyways, anyone wants to hear Bob speaking about it himself, you can go there compared to what Jake's saying. But go ahead, Locksmith.
Find that clip. Can you post it?
Let's see if somebody's got it clipped. This is from the Beyond the Curve.
Yeah, when people have conversations, just like in here, if somebody cut out a little 15-second thing, like for example, even the parts where like you're trolling or something, like I'm not saying Bob was trolling, but if someone did just clip out one of that part and said, look, this guy said this, the point is, but there's even other times where people joke or they say things as a joke, and if you only cut out that 5 seconds, it would be completely out of context. So are you trying to say that you don't think Bob knew about the Sagnac effect, Jake? Which he had talked about for years before that, every week on Globebusters, thoroughly understanding how gyroscopes, are related to the Sagnac effect. Like he knows the entire history of Mickelson Morley, Mickelson Gale. He knows all of that history. So
if he knew that the gyro would show 15 degrees per hour, why did he even get FE Core to do the gyro, to buy a gyro? If the result was already known and accepted, what was the purpose of the gyro?
there was a few different gyros. There was that other mechanical one because he was interested in the whole topic and wanting to get equipment and he was wanting to take it to different altitudes, which they also did, which is problematic for the globe if those results are accurate, but that may not be. I think there were some factors of that weren't really fully controlled for, but that would need to be retested. I mean, dude, there was a lot of discussions back then. Like, yeah, there was that FE Core group, and
Bob was part of FE
so are
Core.
you just asking why he wanted to test things and wanted to play around with the gyroscope? I think that's pretty obvious.
Well,
Why he wanted to do that.
Supposedly he paid this 20. Or I forget how he got that. Somebody gave it to him, or they acquired it as part of FE Core. I don't remember what the deal was of how they got the
Yeah,
$20,000
it
gyro.
wasn't like he got them. It wasn't like he got them to buy the thing. You're kind of exaggerating to try to make your point better
Yeah,
or
no, I'm
something
not.
like
I
that.
don't. I
But it's
don't
not.
actually know the genesis of how he got the
It
gyro,
wasn't
but
his. It was like it was somebody. It was somebody else's. But that's what it cost. It wasn't like anybody had to spend that money. And defending this is ridiculous anyway, because you can just watch the clip that I posted that I recorded a while back, where he explains the whole thing, and he even talks about how the director said, "For society as we know it, it's not a great. We can't make it a positive piece." They basically told them they were going to make it a hit piece because kids might watch it and they can't handle the idea that the government's lying to them and all that.
So you're saying, Dave, in that sense, they tried to steer the narrative to fitting the globe for that reason?
okay. So what you're
Yeah,
saying,
they,
Gio, is
they
not.
directly
So I
told
have
them
a
that
clip of
kids
him.
couldn't handle it. It wouldn't be good for kids to hear this, and we can't make a positive flat Earth thing now. Yeah, and some of those things are taken out of context for that very reason. He explains exactly what the whole thing was with the gyro. Then come to find out that the whatever he did with the gyroscope wasn't even calibrated right. So the results that he got were probably just like what they knew the Sagnac effect was, 15 degrees. I don't know how. I never looked into exactly how that it was. But Man of Stone did a whole thing about that. Like they didn't even calibrate it right, so it wasn't like it was. He measured anything. We have all these ballers just keep repeating. Bob gave us the and they keep repeating it. It makes them sound so stupid to keep harping on this Bob Nodell thing with the 15 degrees and the taken out of context clip and all that. It's just so old and lame. It's a Sagnac effect. Get over it.
Who said
So
that
I'm
they
gonna.
couldn't release
Yeah,
that?
and Bob knew about the Sagnac effect. New perspective. You remember back then? I
No.
mean,
So
obviously
Gio,
he
Yeah, he
saw
knows
it.
all about that. It's so old and lame to bring up Bob at this point in that whole thing. Anyway, yeah, you could hear him explain the exact same thing because somebody was years ago on 24/7 saying, "Well, what about Bob?" And Bob gets on the panel and goes through this whole thing about explaining what the director said to him and the emails that were exchanged and everything.
Oh
So
wait,
just get over it.
so wait. So that came from Bob, the guy who was in the documentary.
Yeah, that's Bob Nodell explaining it himself.
Okay,
Live.
so
so
at
the
the 30
guy that
second
got
mark, Gio.
so the guy that got embarrassed by the documentary, then like kind of told the story afterwards to mitigate that. Maybe
Well,
is that
you
maybe
can
plausible?
frame it however you like. You might want to frame it that way to feel more comfortable about it. But just listen to it and give your own opinion afterwards. How about that?
So in that clip that I just posted at the 30-second mark, Gio, Bob says with his own words that the ring laser gyroscope is incredibly precise, and he said that we're going to get our hands on it and show that there is no rotation. So to me, that means he was expecting that it was not going to show the 15 degrees per hour that's claimed, and that he was going to use this incredibly precise instrument that he respected to show that the Earth is not rotating. It doesn't sound to me like he expected it to show the 15 degrees per hour rotation that the Earth claims, and that he's gonna say, you know, I'm gonna figure out what's really causing this 15 degrees per hour. He doesn't say that in that clip. And
Well,
to me, it
whatever the clip
sounded like
is,
he actually
it's probably
expected
taken
to
out of
not
context
show
because
the
Geo's
15 degrees
familiar.
per hour.
But Geo's followed his work before that and knew that he knew about the Sagnac effect, and that's what would affect the three-ring laser gyro, which is totally contradictory to whatever this clip is showing, you know. So, and he talks about how the directors basically told him that they have to do it this way; they can't do it any other way.
That the Earth is not spinning. So that is not what he said. He said that if the Earth was spinning 15 degrees per hour because it's turning once in 24 hours, then you would see a 15 degree per hour drift if you mounted the gyroscope anywhere on the spinning Earth.
I don't want to like try to call you out here or anything, Jake, but it kind of sounds like you maybe didn't really know Bob's work and that you're just kind of going off like a little bit more of like the kind of anti-flat earth kind of like globe attack thing where they take like little slivers and try to just throw them under the bus and say these various little like talking points like the thanks Bob thing or these kind of like misplaced quotes and then try to make it seem like Bob thought he was gonna like not pick up the Sagnac effect or something. I mean that's just not even sounds like you don't really know his work. Like did you
You know
get
the Sagnac effect is different than the 15 degrees per hour, right? Those are two different things. Sagnac effect is that there is going to be a shift in the frequency of light when it's within a rotating reference frame.
the Sagnac effect is the 15 degrees per hour.
No,
Yes, it is.
no, Sagnac effect is simply the fact that there's going to be a change in the wavelength of light when it's in a rotating reference frame, and it can be used to show the 15 degrees per hour. But you can use the Sagnac effect in a ring laser gyro to stabilize an aircraft, for example. That has nothing
Exactly.
to do with the 15 degrees per hour. That just can be used as a
That's how they
way
measure
of
rotation,
of
genius. They
reference.
use they use the Sagnac effect. That's what he's saying.
He said interesting. He wasn't saying interesting because they got a globe result. Like everybody who was there were globe earthers and flat earthers that were actually there that day. Everybody left agreeing that it was inconclusive because there were certain issues with it. But that documentary made it right at the end there. They made it try to seem like, oh, it was conclusive. You know, they found the curve. That's just a lie. It's just a complete deception. Like that was not the conclusion when everybody was there. It never has been.
So, Gil,
So I'm
in
just
that
saying
video,
those filmmakers, without any question, were deliberately deceptive in multiple components or multiple parts of that whole documentary.
well, in that video at the 30-second mark, he says if we're able to get our hands on a ring laser gyroscope, we'll be able to prove that there is no rotation. So if he was expecting to show 15 degrees per hour from the ring laser gyroscope, why would he say that?
Yeah, exactly. Why would he say that? Who knows? But he goes in that same clip that you provided. It's the same clip that I provided, where he goes and explains how the directors talked to him about how it wouldn't be good for kids to see this, and flat Earth is too big for the society as we know it to handle at this time. And you'll have to understand that's the way it is, and and it's true. That is the way it is. That society can't handle finding out the Earth is flat at this point. It has to be eased in. That seems to be the case.
But Bob also did use that at different altitudes too. So he was using it, showing that there was an Earth rotation by trying to go to different altitudes. So that's another factor of all that.
Yeah, I think that's the one that Man of Stone was saying that he didn't calibrate it right for the different altitudes and all that, because those tests are kind of a wash with the way that the whole thing was calibrated. it shouldn't show what it showed. It shouldn't have showed. I mean, the whole thing was a wash. If they didn't calibrate it right, then you know.
Right, but I'm saying, okay, well, that's a whole thing in and of itself. But I'm just saying that Bob did have the intention to try to do it at different latitudes because he understood that on a globe Earth,
Altitude,
it shouldn't
yeah.
change. Yeah, like it's one rotational rate, and so
Yeah, I
on.
think they did. I think that the theory is that if it's at a different altitude, if it shows a different rate, then that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because if it's a rotating globe, whether you're close to it or up at altitude, it should still be rotating the same. But with like Dayton Miller and for it to be ether, you actually could have that. You could have a stratification between altitudes, which would isolate that it
Right.
is actually the medium and not the actual ground. And so Bob has talked about that as well. And whether that was part of the context that he was referring to there, could be.
And just all the other things that would go with the Earth rotating, like if you something sensitive enough to pick up that as an Earth rotation, think of how many other things that we would notice are sensing that to some degree. Even our inner ears, or and even like something that, I mean, if the Earth is rotating, I mean, it's just like the most far-reaching correlation. I mean, other than all the propaganda that goes into the idea we're on a ball, but it is a far-reaching correlation for sure.
I mean, dude,
You know,
if they've been able to take someone in the modern era, like Bob Nodell in that example, somebody who had a show for years and people that he was in the community, if they're able to take him, chop him up in a documentary, edit it in a deceptive way, and then get a lot of people repeating these things, how much could they have done that to other figures in history? And that's just in modern times, let alone Isaac Newton or guys that claim to have lived hundreds of years ago. Like if they're able to just chop it up with one person, even in the modern era, in the last 10 years.
Yeah. You have Einstein talking about how he wasn't allowed to talk about the ether directly. He says it. There's quotes from him talking, I'm not allowed to talk about the ether.
Wow. Well, he did talk about it to some extent, but there were like these like
And at a
anti-Einsteiner.
certain point, it was like Quantum Eraser and Nathan Oakley saying that ether is not a topic anyone could talk about anymore. like that makes any sense to do. It was like total gatekeeping on what he could say. He basically is what the quote says.
Wow. Yeah, just that level of suppression, like can't even talk about it type of level. Well,
Yeah, it's a non-issue, even though Michelson Morley is based on ether, and that's part of the discussion, which is important to know about no matter which side you're on. But make it a thing that like a buzzword that if you say the ether, you're going to be banned from the Discord. That was ridiculous. That was weird. Um, I don't know what to call it other than controlled opposition.
Oh, you're talking about those guys when they like with 24/7 they were doing that. Yeah, I heard about.
Yeah, like you can't even bring it up as a topic to talk about. Like, what do you mean? The context of it is totally relevant.
Well, I mean, if they were, dude, who knows what they told Einstein? I mean, he seems like he was right in the middle of it all, whatever was going on. And I mean, if they're able to like throw someone under the bus, like a YouTuber in the modern times, like who knows what they did to Einstein to kind of build this type of kind of persona that he has.
Oh yeah. Who knows how much of it was even him? He was kind of like the Musk of his day in a way. They were like contributing everything to him, and a lot of it was stolen work, supposedly.
Yeah, and whoever they kind of want to put up in the limelight and the funding behind them, because I mean, he did talk a bit about ether, but I mean, in fact, in some cases, he like admitted there would have to be one. But it is pretty interesting just considering like all of because there was a whole group of like anti-Einsteiners at that time too, where they were like trying to resist it, but obviously they got kind of overshadowed.
Oh yeah.
And Dayton Miller.
Well, the special relativity, I mean, it's ridiculous on its face. It's insane. I mean, yeah, relative motion. All motion is relative. Sure, we can accept that. It's obvious. But to say that one reference frame can be contradictory to another reference frame, as long as you just deal with one reference frame at a time, it's okay. That's retarded. That's relative retarded. It's ridiculous. Like, oh, we're just going to get out of this and say that everything can contradict itself, and we'll just deal with one reference frame mathematically at a time. That solves everything. Everything in all reference frames is always valid. That's just stupid. It's dumb, 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 dumb. But it's the only way out. That's what the globe model is now, uh, 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 dependent on. I mean, that's the only way to save the globe model is this, one reference frame at a time. Just do it mathematically and treat them all separately, even if they contradict each other. That's what is relative retardation. And that's what the globe model is totally, saved by. That's what it exists as today. You have to accept all that bullshit. That's why there were so many scientists that coming out against special relativity. Rightly so.
Yeah, and then World War II kind of whitewashed it seems like. And they had all the money and everything that went on, and then right into NASA and everything that came out of that afterwards.
Yep. And then totally discredit Tesla. I mean, why weren't we taught about Tesla in school ever? Like, we had to learn about Tesla after we graduated college, or at least, a lot of us didn't even hear the name Tesla until like way after, like getting the
Even in
education of the big names.
even in the mainstream narrative, they still attribute him to AC, right? But like you're saying, they don't talk about it. But even in the narrative, it's not like they discredit him for discover. Like, yeah,
Whitewashed.
You think it's like a form of compartmentalization of physics? Because it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, they don't know what's moving, but then they will tell you what's moving. We're moving around the sun, but then relativistically, you really don't know what's moving, and it's all just relative to a reference frame. And
Oh yeah, it's like Jeremy always says, like, oh, why would I listen to you? Fucking, you don't know what's moving ever. You don't know if it's a tree moving or the car moving. So why would I listen to you about we're moving around the sun? You don't know what's moving ever, right? It's a total contradiction.
if every reference frame is valid, then how could you say that one is even moving around another in any exclusive way? How could you even say the Earth is rotating on its axis? That's a definitive claim of one thing moving and another thing not moving.
Yep. That's where we're at. And that's what we've been saying. Like, it's just obvious. And then people are like, oh, we're totally moving around the sun. No, you can't know if we're moving or not at the same time. As if that makes sense. It's relative retardedness.
But do you think it's connected to like compartmentalization, to compartmentalize the physics into different frames so they can kind of manipulate the different interpretations?
Well, I guess you could call it compartmentalization. I mean, it's just basic contradiction of, it's a law of non-contradiction right there being violated. That's what I would hate if I really had to believe in the ball or my job depended on it. I mean, I feel sorry for people that have to defend this shit. Or, I mean, you don't have to defend it. I mean, it's just weird that people come out and like totally straight faced, like, oh, it's totally this, but then we can't know for sure. And it's just baffling. That's why it's interesting to talk to some of these people that they must know the difference, but then they have to say the opposite of what they must know.
no, it's extremely weird, and there's levels of it, right? Like the people you walk to in the street that actually don't involve themselves in the topic, they just go along with it, and then you start throwing things at them, they're genuinely confused. But a lot of them that have been in the Discords, multiple Discord servers for like years, 5 years plus, and they're still defending the globe.
Yeah, that's what makes them questionable in whatever way you want to posit. Doesn't make any sense. Again, I mean, it's almost like more insulting to think that they actually believe it rather than they're defending it for some ulterior motive. Like, oh, well, like, oh, so am I supposed to just accept that you have no common sense? Oh, okay, I guess I'm arguing with you, and you're saying you have no common sense. Okay, then we'll just go from there.
That's crazy. Yeah.
It is crazy.
So if
And
the
we're the
Earth was
crazy ones.
moving, we would know 100%, right? We'd be able to do things to prove it. I mean, I know the globe states that we wouldn't know, but we would, right? Like 100%.
Well, they can't even say
Yeah.
you wouldn't know because maybe you would know. It's all relative, right? So it could be that we're not moving. If you want to treat it that way, if you want to deal with if you want to deal with a reference frame like that, you can just call it stationary. Everything's treated as if it were stationary. Everything's utilized as if it were stationary, but we're totally not stationary. Everything practical and mechanical that has to do with anything that they need to depend on, the Earth is treated as stationary and level. But we totally know it's not that.
Well, we apparently have 4K, 8K footage of Mars and whatnot, but we still don't have a clip of the Earth rotating from point of view. A full time lapse, a 24-hour time lapse of the globe
We have,
rotating.
like Gio said many times, I guess, but one time I remember, like it's just like if that was actually happening, think of all of the stuff we'd have. There would be no question. We'd have planes flying upside down with all the satellite footage that you could imagine. There'd be so much of it that it wouldn't even be a question.
Oh yeah, you'd have the best 4K footage from every angle. Eclipses happening where you can see the three balls lining up and the shadow going across. And actually, that's a good point. That there's a lot of footage where they kind of show like one face of the ball, then it's like, oh, a satellite, and it shows some like clouds moving and a little bit of a Terminator line that flops across the front of it. In some of the Himawari and some of those. But it is a good point that we don't really have any footage of like the actual Earth rotating in its full glory, like a time lapse, 24 hours, where you can see like the blue side of the ball, and then the whole Pacific Ocean, and then the continents coming up around the bend. Like there isn't really any. I mean, I know there's like the ISS footage where they kind of claim it's like scrolling by. There's the satellite stuff that kind of shows some like cloud kind of, which really could just be high altitude satellite footage anyway. It's just pieced together. But it's a good point. There's no like
Yeah,
genuine footage of like the whole
even if they
ball.
had one, is what you're saying now, but you were saying before, which made a lot of sense too. They have more than like it'd be like so much of it that you would just be like, okay, fine, yeah, we're on a ball. Because if they have the capabilities to actually show stuff from space, there would be no question. There'd be more than you could possibly imagine, and there's not even anything really that's totally that believable.
Yeah, I mean, Google Earth is like a cartoon, and then you zoom into it, and you kind of it turns into like real land. But when you zoom out, it has a very cartoony kind of like graphical, and there's so many different layers
Yeah,
to it. But I mean, you could, if it was real, you would have the whole thing. You'd be able to zoom in and out, like you said, even see planes going upside down. I mean, I
sure.
know that's kind of assuming that they would have that technology, but still, like there seems like there would be tons of. Well, I'm saying whether Google Earth integrated that in, like an advanced, like a street view but globe view, for the actual globe, because you can do street view. That's
Sure.
real.
Especially if
Where's
they
the
can go to Mars and film stuff with a rover and all that. They got to the point where that's the other thing I was talking about. If there was really a fucking rover on Mars, and if they achieved that for real, we'd all be glued to our TV just going, "Oh my god! Oh my god!" Like it's fucking A. Are you kidding me? Oh, this is incredible. But they give us the cartoon thing of it, landing on it, and it's all just very like. And then obviously there's places where you could just, get the tint right, so you could be on Earth, and there's even places that are designated for practicing as if they're on the Mars, and I mean it's just so obvious, Devon Island and all that. I mean it's I mean if you have to be like walked through it to see how obvious it is, you have to at least be, I guess you'd have to be open to the idea that it's possible. It's just because the propaganda the lie is so big, and that's the protective layer that, what's his name? Buzz Aldrin talked about the protective layers of truth, because the idea that it's stationary, I mean, maybe they don't know what's going on. Like maybe they don't know why we're here or how we got here or any of that, right? We're just on a stationary little area and we're confined to it for whatever reason. And there's a lot more areas we can't get to. Maybe there's a treaty. Who knows? There's all kinds of possibilities of why they can't say, besides the philosophical, decision to make it that way. And I can understand that to a certain degree. Like if we're a rat in a cage, if we're told there's a border we're not allowed to go beyond, would that be a better reality than just, oh, there's nowhere else to go? I don't know.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, I
Armstrong.
mean, this is verified, right? There's no such thing as just. Of course, you have independent travel. You can travel. You can get on a plane, and in your own country, you can walk around and drive as far as you want. But there's always a boundary. You'll always hit a boundary at a certain point where you have to prove why you want to go here, or and you have to be granted access or denied access.
It's just better. People want to feel like they know, and so at some point, just saying that you do know, even if you don't, it became, convenient in a lot of ways to the people that are ruling, and it became a tradition. And then people that are alive today that are protecting it, they just inherited it. It's not like they came up with it. So it's one of those things that, for whatever reason, they have to continue pushing it. But I think that they might actually end up using flat Earth as like, I mean, this might be like a controlled demolition, because it seems like they're faking space poorly on purpose. It's that bad. Why are they doing it so poorly on purpose and showing us wires on the ISS? They don't have to show us any of that.
Yeah, it's
You can't
gotten
just do
worse, right?
mistakes. Yeah.
Oh, the
It's like
Artemis
they're
2
setting
thing.
us up, but giving us everything.
Yeah, and
We're
the
gonna have the
global.
New World Order, Outer Ponder, alien invasion coming up.
Well, it's one of those topics where they can sort of this is how they filter it out, right? They're going to filter everybody and figure out, like, do you want to question us, or are you going to go along with the narrative? Are you a problem? Okay, these people aren't a problem. They're easily controlled. Go over here. And then these are and people don't understand. They've been doing this for a long time, like Facebook and those kinds of things, which are like government programs. Everybody's a number, right? They want to be in total control of every single person, and know exactly who you
Yeah,
are and be able to predict your next move and all that sort of stuff. And this is with the predictive programming, the dystopia where you're easily dealt with. Do you know what I mean? Like right now we have a certain level of due process, right? We see it happening in England. Obviously, it's happening in other countries, but where the police are coming to your door for things that you said. And right now, it's not like they're booting the door in and dragging you out and shooting you on the spot, but that's where they want to get to.
oh, that's a scarier possibility. Yeah. If they're like faking space poorly on purpose and just making sure that the general populace is dumbed down enough to believe it or accept it, and or just say they accept it, even if they don't, because they're controlled and they accept that they're controlled. That would be the scarier option. Yeah, like they're just baiting us to point out the obvious, and when you point out the obvious, then you get smackdown. That's kind of what they did with Sandy Hook and some of these other things, where they were baiting people to make videos, and then they could start restricting and start using their censorship because of the sensitive topic that they created for us to doubt, and then made it obvious on purpose so that people would call it out, and then they could say, oh, here's a good reason to censor, and then also divide the people yelling at each other because one's saying you're not sensitive enough to the children, and the other one's going, obviously there's no children that died, it's totally fake, because it's and then go to the next level and say they orchestrated it. They did it poorly on purpose for that reason. There's a whole other step that people can't. It's hard for people to realize. Same with 9/11, with the controlled opposition from the very start. All the mistakes were made on
Parents
purpose.
are actors, huh?
Yeah.
It's pretty fucked up.
Well, what do you think about this? Like, they have a playbook. They're running a playbook. It's like certain periods of time. And right now the thing is the alien invasion, right? They're hyping it up and stuff, but that's been in the works for a long time. And you need a globe to suggest that there's extraterrestrial life out there. Without that whole, Milky Way galaxy thing, you don't have that. So that's why it's a key part in that narrative.
Well, that's why I say that maybe the whole, uh, double cross of the whole thing is, or the plan, the long term plan of it is to marry flat Earth with the alien stuff, and then say that it's the outer ponders, it's our ancient ancestors with the advanced technology, and that's where the aliens ships have come from this whole time. And we had a treaty. It would give them the excuse too, like we had a treaty with the people in this area that we're in. The Earth is flat, and it's actually the outer ponders that have been the aliens the whole time. And then that revelation and that admittance of truth would unite the one world against the aliens, or it would be good. They could there's so many narrative possibilities. Whether it's true or not, they could use their own version of it, of that kind of truth, and have good aliens, bad aliens, and all of the the narratives they want to weave with that. And it's a local threat. That's much. It's much more threatening and much more useful if it's a local threat. To have like these aliens that came from other planets, that's not only very unlikely and very hard to believe, but it's not a direct threat, and it's like a alien that you can squash like a bug instead of like a human ancient ancestor that's much more wise, that has a brain that you actually could negotiate or be scared of in a totally different way than some alien thing. Then they could just use humans if they're just psyoping the whole thing. They could just use humans as the ancient ancestors, and they don't have to like do the whole like alien beings. And they even set this up with the Disclosure Project, where the guy was talking about 57 different species that live amongst us. Said they look just like us, but they could like touch something in the dark and know the color of it and all that. But he said the one thing that we can't get past is why they would look just like us if they came from a different planet with a different atmosphere. So he's saying basically, yeah, they're here and they're amongst us, which is ridiculous to begin with because 57 different species, and he doesn't give any more details than that they look like us, but they're 57 different species they've identified. Anyway, so he goes on to say that we can't really reason that they'd come from another planet. So he's basically saying they're from here. But that's a whole other thing that you could read into. At least I have. I think that's part of the setup for them calling for admitting the Earth is flat and do the whole biblical revealing of the truth and use flat Earth as a way of like controlling us even worse, which is ironic.
Wait, these would be flat Earth aliens?
Outer ponders, you've heard me say this before. Outer ponder, ancient ancestor, outer ponder aliens.
No, I know, but would they be? Are you saying that they would be saying that these aliens would be on a planar Earth?
Yeah, they could use the revealing of flat Earth to unite the world, like it's united all the people already that realize it's not a ball, because it's an obvious truth when you look at it. So that would be like the way of uniting everyone. But then the aliens being the ancient ancestor, outer ponder threat that's local and variable depending on which outer ponder you're talking about. They have all the narratives right there, use that and say that's where the ships have always been this whole time, or they have to come from the water because there's the only way to get to the outer ponds is through the ocean tunnels, or whatever they want to say. I mean, they could just be somebody that's, they don't have to even say it directly. They could just have somebody that's respected that is saying this is the case, and because it lines up with the flat Earth and everything else, let people choose if it's outer space aliens or outer ponder aliens or whatever. Just keep people divided over what the truth is. But the fact is that they have directed energy weapons, and if you don't do what they say, you're going to get zapped like your neighbor's house that disappeared or whatever. Whatever they want to do. There's so many possible. It's so much. It's such a better narrative.
Wait, are you saying the idea that like the controllers now would stage like kind of some kind of a fake event of some sort with like fake aliens, where they would try to say that the aliens are coming to like save us from the globe lie, and they're gonna like set us free and give us the real information or whatever, and then kind of play that as if they're coming to save the day? Because the current like problems in
Yeah, there could be
cosmology
that.
and
Yeah,
building. I'm just trying to steal,
yeah.
man. Like, is that part of one possibility of what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, and they could use like the bad, like good aliens and bad aliens. Some are here to help us, and some are here to hurt us. Or whatever.
Do you think if they do an alien event, if there's still like, if it's still split on what people think the Earth is, are they going to tell some people that they're coming from outer space, and then the people that are flat Earth they're going to say are coming from some other part of the pond?
Yeah, imagine that if they actually plan on doing like a whole reveal, they could make that like the whole contention. Like, it's ridiculous. We're on they come from outer space, and then people could argue whether they're space aliens or outer ponders, and that could be a whole discord of its own. I mean, this is like far-reaching, it seems, but if they do the alien invasion, I don't think that alien invasion helps in any way to keep the globe thing going, because if they do plan on going like outer space and have people like set on like living on other planets and stuff, if they think there's aliens in the sky, they're going to shoot them, or there's going to be some kind of threat. I mean, it would just change the whole way people think about it. No one's going to be volunteering to go to Mars if there's aliens up there.
What do you think their like long-term plan in general? Like, we're talking about the alien thing. With the Earth not being a sphere and outer space not actually being a thing, from that perspective, like, I mean, I guess we're kind of talking about some of these ideas, but what are they going to do as the time goes on? Like, it seems like for them, wouldn't they be thinking like sooner rather than later, like more and more people are going to figure this out, especially when there's not civilian space travel, and a lot of people are still like, I mean, more people are questioning space now more than ever. Granted, a lot of people are just kind of on the fence or whatever, but even the last like Artemis 2 thing and the Katy Perry going to space, like, it just seems like the coverage they're getting. I mean, yeah, the believers are still believing it. I'm not saying that they've stopped believing, but a lot more people are just hearing it more, like, wait, space isn't what they tell us it is, like, that is out there more, even more than the Earth not being a globe. The whole people questioning space. I even saw on some like Theo Von podcast, he was talking to some, like, she seemed like a young girl. And he said to her, he's like, what do you think about Katy Perry going to space? And the girl was like, it's a lie. And then at one point, the little girl goes, space lied, which is funny because he was like, oh, you think she lied about it? And then their little girl was like, no, space lied. Just a funny way to say it. But like, that's like part of like everyone's kind of understanding now. Now, I'm not saying everyone thinks it's not real or whatever, but I'm saying as time goes on, doesn't it seem like it's just gonna, like a pressure cooker, it's just gonna be boiling more and more? And then that's why like they might think that they have to have some kind of plan, whether it's like a fake alien invasion or some kind of event, because as time goes on, people are gonna be like, wait, why isn't there civilian space travel? Like, how long can they really push that off? Maybe another couple of years, but
Yep.
If they could do whatever they want, is the thing. Like, it works to their advantage as long as people are arguing about what the truth is. I don't think they're worried about too many people finding out. I think that the more people that think it's different than what they're told, the better, because there's nothing they can really do about it anyway. It's not like they're counting the votes for anything anyway.
Yeah, I can't
okay,
imagine
you're
them
saying
ever dropping the globe.
go ahead. Oh, you can't imagine them ever dropping the globe, you said?
Yeah, just so invested. I mean, it's sort of like the idea of politicians. We all know they're liars, but it's not going to change anything.
Yeah, what
It's
would
better
motivate
if
them?
they don't. It's better for us, ironically, if they don't try to use flat Earth to their advantage. Like, if the government comes out and tells us the Earth is flat, that's going to suck for us. Ironically, worse than anything possible, because
Maybe
then they're
not.
using it and defining it and making it their flat Earth. If they're lying to us about it now and they decide to tell us the truth about it, do you think that the truth about it's going to be the truth? They'll
Well,
make their own little pseudoscience flat Earth thing.
that's a great point. That depends on their approach they're going to take. Because let's say if Earth is flat and they want to let everybody know, they're going to have to win people's hearts over. So it would have to be released to the world in which way the people will accept and understand. But I totally get what you're saying, because even if the Earth is a globe, I think they would lie about it. They would lie about the size, the shape, the age, perhaps where
Yeah,
it
they
is
can
in the
say
world.
there's no more land. It's just like this. The firmament's this thick. There's nowhere else to go. Okay, yeah, it's a flat Earth, but now that we're inside a firmament and the air is contaminated. So now you got to get in these smart city domes to protect yourself from the air in the big dome. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that it could be useful. And since we're telling you the truth now, you have to believe everything else we say.
Yeah, that's a potential possibility. Absolutely.
We'll have flat Earth taco stands. You won't know who's cool anymore. Everyone will be like, "Hey, flat Earth, yeah, it's a big deal." They'll hit like and move on.
It would be great for the economy, perhaps. New movies, new games,
Yes,
new textbooks,
all
right? All
kinds
the
of
new
stuff.
textbooks.
The narratives, the possibilities for the narratives, because it makes so much more sense. Everyone will be on board and be like, "Yeah, I'm going to go to," or you could even give your life savings over to go to the outer pond. The fantasy outer pond, the one where you live 3 times longer, and it's paradise. The only thing is, once you go there, you can never come back, and no one can ever talk to you again. So who knows if there's actually an outer pond paradise?
Yeah, I think the reason why they'll never drop the globe is because it undermines their authority, right? Like, if you know this place was created, like, know it is created versus, being skeptical. I mean, I would even think it to some degree would undermine the church's authority. I think that's why they got involved in it in the first place.
Well, then there's a theory that they could say this is it was built by these outer ponders, and that's where Jesus comes from, and all that too. They could work in all the explanations for the reasons we're confused about things, because it was literally built by these people that are our ancient ancestors, or whatever. They want to. The narratives are endless with how they could tie it into a one world religion. But then it would just be like same boss, same as the old boss, like new boss, same as the old boss, but just with a new paradigm. Yeah, but I don't think this is going to happen. I'm just saying it would be best if it didn't happen, in fact, because if they start telling us it's flat, then we should really start worrying. What are they going to use it for? Like, why would they do that? It's not because they showed us all the wires on the ISS like it was a mistake. So there's no way that all these bloopers are just like totally available to everybody right away. It seems like a controlled demolition of the narrative, or they're just going to
Well,
gaslight us like indefinitely. Who knows?
they would need some motivation, I guess, to come clean if the Earth is flat. But if they did, new perspective, how willingly are you, or how much forgiveness are you willing to extend to them?
Well, that's the thing is like it doesn't matter if they tell us it's flat. It's not really. I mean, a lot of people already know that, but I think it's because I think flat Earth was either taken over, co-opted, or rolled out on purpose. They don't let things become such a thing. They could have done a lot more to get rid of it at the very beginning. That's all I'm saying. Could have made a school shooter or a flat earther or something.
Yeah, but
When
what
they
if?
need to.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, when they need to, they give the people what they want. This is how they operate,
But how much of what the people want was created by them as well, right?
Mm.
Well, are you talking like in 2014, 15? Because what do you think of the idea that it did just naturally start getting more popular, and then the powers that be were like, well, let's kind of let it grow a little. Let's see what if it, let's kind of almost like a test run, kind of see how far people take it. And so maybe they let it fly on the algorithms. They just let it all fly for a couple of years while they're observing. They saw it rising, 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 and they were like, whoa, this got way bigger than we thought. We're going to have to suppress it, which it seems like in 2019, end of 2018 into 2019, they did all the censorship and all the shadow banning and did everything they could do to where now, like, new people who might look into it, it's very difficult for them to find good information, and just all the algorithm, reshuffling. Like, do you leave the possibility open for that it was organic, and then they were like, well, let's watch, they know it's something they want to keep from people. So if people are going to start talking about it, instead of just totally shutting it down, maybe they kind of let it fly a little bit for a while to monitor and see how it, how much it was resonating with people to kind of get a temperature gauge kind of thermometer test. And then once it got out of hand, they were like, all right, now we got to try to suppress it. And
Yeah,
then
who knows? I mean, it's not really that important to know to say one way or another
I
whether
mean,
it was
is it a
all of them
coincidence?
or
Is it a coincidence they called COVID flattening the curve right after they censored flat Earth?
yeah, total gaslighting, total gaslighting. I do not believe that was a coincidence whatsoever.
Well, there is a theory that they did COVID like earlier than they were going to because of like a lot of truth coming out, including the shape of the Earth. There is that theory that they like locked down because they did a censorship in 2019 and then they basically locked the world down and muzzled us and ran this whole thing. But that seems to kind of a backfire too. But I mean, that is one theory that they who knows? They might have like several events kind of like on rotation, and then they're like, when they decide to do one, like, all right, we'll do like obviously 9/11 they would have been planning for a very long time. But maybe like a pandemic one, they might just have everything kind of prepared, and then if they feel like they need to do it, all right, let's run this program, Then they get all their stuff together and roll it out. But there is the idea that they did that because a lot of people were becoming more aware of things, and so they kind of like a flex, like, hey, you're gonna mess with us, watch this. We can lock you down and be scared of a virus and take our vaccine. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to think of if that was all timed in some way, purposefully.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But it's like one of those things that like they can basically say what people think, even if they don't think it. Like it's like 90% of the people think this. Who knows if that's actually what 90% of the people think? And if they can lock down the world in one day, the whole world could shut down the same day. They could do anything they wanted to. If they wanted to get rid of flat Earth or make it like the most evil thing and like attribute it like they did with whatever, like the Nazi symbol or Hitler or whatever. If they want to make that like the thing people think of as, which they already did. I mean, as far as like it being like the stupidest thing to think, they already brainwashed us to think that young. But if they really wanted to like get rid of it, they could have done a lot more. As the point was, and the discord from it is useful.
Yeah, I'm totally with you
Separate,
with the
separate.
Geo. I'm totally with you on the flat Earth aspect, right? I'm not sure how organic it was in 2015, 14, 16. That part I question a lot because man, it all of a sudden it seemed like mainstream was pushing it pretty hard. I do think that you're right on, sort of letting it go and the testing of it, like how big of a threat is this and what is it actually going to turn into if we do put this information out? But it felt very controlled from the very get go, to me at least. I'd like to sort of see the organic numbers of early 2010s or whatever and what it was looking like at that point before we had the obvious rollout.
Well, that's an interesting question. Or were they just letting the algorithms fly? Because a lot of people that were looking into like moon landing or 9/11 or just other things, it's like flat Earth started getting linked in with all that, which yeah, if you look at it from like the CIA is trying to like kind of control quote unquote conspiracy theories and then kind of try to label them with certain things and then get it in front of people. It could, just so they can either gauge it or have like various different things going. I don't know though. That's a deep question, like whether it was organic and then they responded like a controlled opposition or whether it was actually somehow pushed. Because I mean, the algorithms like just seem to be working the way they should. Like if somebody found I mean, obviously, like them not landing on the moon is related to potentially the shape of the Earth, although a lot of people still believe the globe and then they still don't believe the moon landing. So it doesn't have to be, but a lot of people would be looking into it like, oh, like, okay, NASA's lying about the moon landing. What else are they lying about? And the actual entire shape of the Earth itself is a whole question. Because, I mean, they went to the moon to like get the first photo, quote unquote, of the globe, from a human or whatever from far away. And just that whole like Earthrise and oh, there it is out there in space. So yeah, that kind of like solidified in people's minds, like at least in their minds, like oh, we really are on this ball, this little blue marble speck in space kind of thing. Whereas before that, people were told it, but they didn't really have any visual for it. So, anyways, but I'm just saying, if flat Earth videos were getting like algorithmically linked with things like moon landing and other things, then yeah, like was that done on purpose, or was it just that they just let the algorithm, like they didn't stop the algorithm and they just let it, like if people were putting that tag in there, they just let it link around to other people. Or was it purposeful? I kind of tend to think it was organic, and then there was like a controlled op, that they kind of put into place. But that's just kind of my overall thoughts on
Yeah,
it.
I'm with you with that because when the internet rolled out, right, we had YouTube basically was conspiracy central when it opened. Like conspiracy videos were linked relentlessly on your front page if you looked at one, right? And they definitely turned that around at, like you're saying, maybe 2019, maybe even a little bit before that. But I could see an organic aspect to it for sure. I'm just wondering how much momentum and if it was a response to that organic growth. It'd be interesting to sort of peel back the numbers.
No, they let a
'Cause
ton of stuff fly.
But getting back to 2016, you really didn't have a lot of content creators that were making flat Earth stuff. It was just a handful that really put it out there. But I could see what you're saying, as far as the NASA stuff was huge, and conspiracies in general were just off the charts and growing like crazy.
Well, the whole 9/11 event, and then when YouTube was kind of all got going, yeah, like there's tons of 9/11 content and other stuff too, yeah. And then, I mean, there were like in the ancient calendars, like the Mayan calendars and Aztec, like that December 21st, 2012. I think that's pretty interesting, like right at the end of 2012, because pretty much in like 13 and 14 is when flat Earth started kind of percolating more. So, and people questioning more the actual globe itself, because there was probably some of that before then, but it really does seem like that's a shifting point. But yeah, it's a deep question whether they kind of rolled it out or whether there's some kind of like social engineering controlled aspect to it all. I think there is, but it's just a question whether they're monitoring something like the waves of what people are doing, and then they're kind of having to monitor it and then try to co-opt it, or whether they actually initiated it. And that's kind of a debate point, or a point that people contest just in terms of what it might be.
Well, have you thought about this one? It's like, sorry, in the olden days, like alleged olden days, like they had physical slavery, and as the population grew and stuff, there's only a certain amount of them, so there's less of them to control us, and it's like a workplace. They come up with ways like, how can we get the team more efficient? And they realize like, if you give them the illusion of freedom, but you still own them, they're more productive, and then all these little truth subcategories, if they give us the little taste that, oh, we can explore these things and we're onto something, we have the illusion that we're a little bit more free than we actually are. Do you know?
Yeah, I like that one. That's good too. And I always considered flat Earth to be one of the easiest things to prove, right? Curve or no curve, so simple. Some of the testing they could have been doing is to see, okay, what other topics are these people going to get into that we can sort of control the narrative, right? Like what questions are they going to ask once they realize there is no curve?
Yes, there's many entailments. Just like when I guess you discover one truth, you discover two more questions, or if it is a truth.
At least when it comes to flat Earth, yeah, thousands of questions came to mind.
But are you saying that they would want to allow some of it to kind of roll because they'd then be able to see what people are going to think additionally, or where it's going to go, and then that way they can kind of try to control the opposition basically, or just control it to the point where they can be trying to lead the information with their guys kind of thing, which when you look at the flat earth content that's kind of made it to the mainstream media, it is pretty controlled. They're not really letting anyone on there, the BBC and all that, to talk about it.
Yeah, it's even like, say, what's those things like Jubilee and stuff? Where they have like 20 verse 1 sort of thing. Do they have a flat earth one? I'm not sure. But they definitely have basically every other topic you could think of, but they don't have a flat earth one. So it's like on the mainstream level, because I consider Jubilee mainstream, right? Those sort of things like Vice News. I mean, Nathan Oakley was on Vice News, right? So they did have it, but it's always in like increments, sort of thing. I don't know how to explain it really.
Yeah, you find out there's no curve, and then you're left with a question. Okay, where do I live, right? And to be honest, flat earthers don't know where they live, right? We don't have the amount of data or information that they have to know more, aspects of it. How does it work, and what is it really? So we're sort of left asking those questions, and let's be real, there isn't a ton of accurate information out there still on where we live.
especially from the mainstream. But I've seen incredible work by some of the truth seekers in the community. Donk is one of them. He's from Germany, and he showed me, one of his videos, and I was so busy with life, just like you guys are. But I made the time, because he really reached out. He wanted my opinion, and he essentially he made this AE map, one of the highest resolution maps that I've seen in my research, and then he overlaid sacred geometry on top of the AE map. And have you guys seen it? If not, I highly recommend it. But because it seems like he found some sort of correlation between mineral deposits and maybe resources around the world that are on these sort of sacred geometry lines. It's really fascinating stuff. Not only that, like it's like a half an hour movie. I could drop it, but once you get into it, he'll basically take you through a lot of really interesting maybe places around the world or on the supposed globe that seem to align with the sacred geometry. And he said that it doesn't work on the globe, only on a planar topical plane. I'll drop the video for you guys to consider one day.
Yeah,
But
I watched Dom's video as well, and yeah, the sacred geometry does seem to line up with the ley lines, which is what E1 was finding too with the dual pole. And it seemed like the alignments, at least for Dom's video, it seemed like it was a better alignment with stuff in the north. So who knows if it's a dual pole, works with the south too. But I'll drop some of the images I made that go along with what E1 was finding with the ley lines and the way the sacred geometry works with that.
I don't understand though. How can you have ley lines on a flat Earth map, but there's no flat Earth map? So how would you be able to draw ley lines on a map that doesn't exist?
Well, he actually used the nautical almanac to line up the stars with the way that the continents are positioned on his. So that would be the flat Earth map I'm talking about.
All right, so he's figured out the flat Earth map. You guys have a map now? I'm
It
mostly
also
doing this
depends
to
how you
troll
think.
Geo because Geo really hates it every time I bring it
You
up.
haven't been here? Do you want me to send you all the E1 videos?
Yeah, there's lots of maps. There's tons of them.
yeah, it would
Hold on,
just
you
be
just
a matter of accuracy. Is it like 100% accurate, or is it like 90%, 80%, 70%?
Can I see a
yeah.
flat
It
Earth
also
map that he's using?
Yeah, so it depends how you think about it. So the current map that we have for our entire world, that is the flat Earth map. That's just our section of it. It's just projected onto a globe. But you know that you traverse that. As a plane. You don't traverse it as a globe. But the map is correct, but it's just projected onto a globe. But it is a flat Earth map.
Yeah, but because it's globe, I can do all kinds of things. Like I can go
No,
northwest
inside your head, you
from
can.
Australia and get to Asia and keep going west and then get to Europe.
But you
Keep going west, get to
correct.
North America, right? That obviously
But you still
cannot
do
be
that
on
on a
a flat
plane.
Earth.
You still do that on a plane because, like, when you and two words like plane. You know, when you get in an aeroplane, you just elevate and then you travel in a straight line and then you land. Either way, whether you go by boat or you go by car or ride a bike, whatever, you're still doing that on a plane. It's not on a globe. It's just inside your head that you think you're doing it on a globe, right? You're not actually going around a curve or anything like that. That's what the main thing that separates, like, okay, this is my thing that I've always said. So there's no such thing as a glober. It's just a belief system. But all globers are actually flat earthers. If you truly understand what flat earth is, you're just rejecting the globe and you're taking the world for what it is. So say, for example, you're a hardcore glober and you swear that you're on a globe, etc., etc. Me and you have the exact same observations regardless of our belief. Me and you don't feel it spinning. Me and you don't see the curve. And none of us have been high enough to see it from a certain point. So if you understand my position, then you have the same position as me. So you're actually a flat earther as well.
No, because we've got a map that works. This map that New Perspective posted obviously doesn't work, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
Oh,
Australia
yeah, you
doesn't
just
look
want to
like.
say that. You can
Obviously,
say that, but
Australia
you
doesn't
can't
look
prove
like that,
that.
right?
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
prove you can't prove that. You can just say it, Jake. But you can't prove that. So what does that do for you? Just to say it doesn't work. It works.
yeah. And that is just a nut statement when you say nope, it doesn't work. And would you agree that you have the same observations as me? Like you don't feel it spinning. Obviously, you're going to add to that and say you don't feel it spinning because, but you would agree that me and you have the exact same position, regardless of our belief, that none of us feel it spinning,
Well,
and that
we can
apart
Yeah,
from
the
calculate
globe
rather
doesn't
than
work. We don't. There's nobody upside down relative to me right
rather
now.
than saying we should feel spin, we already know what
no,
a human's ability is to feel as far as the minimum acceleration that we can feel. And then we can do the math and calculate what the acceleration would be on a spinning ball of 25,000 mile circumference. And then we can
yeah,
calculate
okay,
if it's within that, right? Because, like, for example,
yeah,
when you get your instrument rating for general aviation, they talk about in there what is the minimum acceleration that a human can feel and why you can be substantially drifted. You could even be practically upside down in an airplane and not be able to tell if you're in the clouds because you've slowly drifted well below the acceleration that you can feel, the human body can feel. This is over just the course of minutes and being you could be like in a sideways spiral and you might think that you're climbing into the sky, death spiral, and you feel like you're climbing in the sky because your
Oh
senses
my
can be
god.
easily deceived.
I know,
There's
All
no
that to
mystery
say
about
you
it.
don't feel Earth spinning.
yeah, but
And
I
it's
completely,
falling in space 30 kilometers a second, accelerating.
yeah. But can I say I completely understand all that, but the only point I'm trying to make is that you know what common ground is? Like when you try to establish a common ground between two people, and that is the plane that we're standing on, that's the common ground, number one. But the common ground, if we started at a baseline that, okay, me and you don't experience feel it moving, we would share that common ground. And what I'm saying is no matter how far we climbed up that ladder, the only thing that's going to separate us is a belief system. But your belief in the globe doesn't make you any more correct. You're just choosing to believe in the globe. The only difference between us is that I'm not accepting things without any proof, right? I'm not accepting it on a story.
Yeah,
You're
but there's
accepting the
no proof
narrative.
that the flat earthers don't accept proof, right? Like I'll just show you pictures from space. You'll say that that's not proof, right?
That's
I'll show you
evidence.
the testimony of hundreds of pilots, right? And you'll tell me that, or of astronauts, I mean, and you'll tell me that that's not proof, right?
No, because
So
Well, pilots will tell you they fly as if it's stationary and
I'll show
level. So
you.
all
I'll
the
show you
pilots will say that.
exactly.
All the pilots
But that's
say
why I'm.
it's stationary and
Mm.
level. So what kind of proof is that to you,
No,
Jake? All
no.
pilots
Wolfie
fly
That's why I'm
as if
trying
it's
'6020.
to.
stationary and
Wolfie
level.
'6020
Wouldn't
has
even be
literally been
possible on.
trying. Wolfie
Okay,
6020 has
okay.
been trying for the last 10 years to find an airline pilot that thinks the Earth that's willing to have an interview with him who thinks the Earth is flat and has not been able to find one. He's had an open challenge for
Yeah,
this
yeah,
for
but
so
there's
long on
plenty
his
of
channel.
Well,
Why
I'm
is that
sure
not
Wolfie's
on?
really doing I'm sure Wolfie's really looking. That ruins his
Yeah,
paradigm. I'm sure he's doing.
Yeah, he's being
and
really
he's had
thorough.
an open challenge on his channel, and some of his videos have like 500,000 views, so he's definitely got a pretty big audience.
Well,
So
his
you
big
think
audience
someone
are
with a
all just globe fanatics.
There's plenty of videos on Hibbler Productions, which is an old channel, but Hibbler Productions has plenty of videos with interviews with pilots on the plane.
Yeah,
And
there's even
plenty of
like a
people.
3 hour long
Yeah,
documentary, Flat Earth
yeah,
pilots.
plenty of people just getting off a flight and having the chance to ask the pilot and asking them quickly. Oh, sorry, it's a bit of a weird question, but can I just ask you?
Yeah, I've seen the ones
Um,
where the pilots are obviously tongue-in-cheek trolling, and then
Oh,
you
okay.
guys,
So
they
then
take
you're
that
just doing the
snippet.
same thing, right? You're saying that flat earthers, no matter what you present to them, they say there's no such thing as
yeah?
proof. But anything we present to you, you just say, oh, it's tongue in cheek, whatever. And I just want to establish something here. The thing I'm trying to establish is Globers, they get away with this sort of position, right? That any flat earther is claiming to have proof. And that's why I'm trying to establish a true flat earther's position is just rejection of the globe, which is a belief system, but we all share the same experience and the same observation. So you are actually in a lesser position because you have claims and stuff that you can't validate, and then you assert that I have a claim, but I don't have any claims. I'm trying to establish that I don't feel it moving, you don't feel it moving. I don't see a curve, you don't see a curve. I don't believe the narrative, you believe the narrative. That's the key difference. But you get away with just jumping the gun and saying flat earthers don't have proof and flat earthers think that is that. But the real position is what I just said, right? Globers are the ones that have all the
Well
claims.
put.
And yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying well put. Like if this was in 1800s, I'd be here.
Yeah, like
Gio
Jake,
always
would
gets
you agree
mad.
that there's like an institution basically? The globe is like an institution that you just have to kind of adhere to?
No.
It's no more of an institution than literally anything that we're taught about our reality. You think everything that we're taught about our reality is wrong?
No, I didn't say that. But there's a significant institution that's built up with this whole globe kind of system.
Like when
And
they teach you chemistry in high school, or they teach you about disease theory in biology in 10th grade, is that institution? Is that all made up nonsense?
well, some of that stuff is an institution, like the institution of some of these kind of scientific paradigms and concepts, but that doesn't mean it's all false. No, I wouldn't say every single part of what fields are you talking about, biology and whatnot. No, but there could be.
Chemistry, biology, like all the stuff all the indoctrination that you guys claim we go through schooling, right? Especially if you decide to pursue a science degree, something that I really would have liked to do. I just didn't have the IQ for it. But
But there you
you
go
pursue a
again,
science
stating that it's
degree
a
in
claim.
college, and then you study those subjects in detail.
But sir, you go again, stating it's a claim. It's not a claim. That's a factual statement. It is indoctrination because if you don't question it, that's the difference between indoctrination and education. So you're not being educated on the subject because you don't question the subject, meaning you are, by definition, being indoctrinated. That's not a claim.
I also think there's different parts of the education system. Like chemistry probably has a lot less indoctrination than astrophysics, for example. Chemistry is
I mean,
pretty direct.
Die Slow wouldn't agree with you. There's lots of flat earthers that wouldn't agree with you, right? Because chemistry is based on atomic theory, on having a number of electrons and orbitals, right? Things that he doesn't believe in. So he would say that's indoctrination.
Well, no, there is with the whole model of it. Yeah. I mean, that's actually part of the model of the whole atomic. So yeah, I hear you there, but
Chemistry wouldn't make any
I'm talking about
sense.
some of the, yeah, but that's the theory around what's happening. I'm talking about the actual, like, add this chemical A to chemical B is a more hands-on thing than claiming,
Yes.
probes are out in space or
But all
whatever.
those predictions are based on that model about the atomic model, right? The number of protons, neutrons, and electrons in these various elements and their isotopes, right? And not only that, people then take that knowledge and they go on to make useful things based on that, right? Like chemical batteries wouldn't make any sense if that wasn't the way reality worked. You wouldn't be able to synthesize the anodes and cathodes and use in modern batteries if you didn't have that basis in chemistry to explain the technology, right? So obviously, you can just say it's all made up nonsense, but in the end, it's the people that believe in that are producing the things that have changed our lives, right? With groundbreaking technology.
Yeah, but that's
Great
two different
credit,
things. So
fallacy.
there's the practical side of it, and yeah, what you're saying is true about the atoms and whether that's all made up. But then you do have direct like it's cause and effect relationships where you're going to add a certain chemical and it's going to create a certain effect. When you don't add that chemical, you don't get that effect, right?
Yeah, but you can make novel predictions using that. And if it was all just trial and error, you wouldn't be able to make novel predictions and predict what the behavior would be based on, what the model teaches you.
Nobody's counting electrons to do
Every novel
chemistry, dude. Like,
experiment would
tell
have a
me one
completely
chemist.
unpredictable result.
Tell me one chemist that counts electrons to make shampoo.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a philosophical, theoretical framework around what is happening at the chemical level, or what they call atomic, versus the actual practical empirical results. So you can make like a high level type of plastic or titanium or metal, carbon fiber, whatever it may be with chemicals. You can do the practical side of, okay, we mix this, we mix that, we heat this up to that, and it creates this material. And then you could have a whole like theoretical back end to say, well, I think it's atoms and electrons jumping around. You could make that kind of theory, but the theory is not necessarily directly, correlative always with the actual practicality, or that the theory is like a model that you're placing over it and a framework. And there could be some parts that are correct about that framework in terms of like the types of chemicals that are categorized in different ways, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the entire theoretical side of it is all the truth. So yeah, I think there is some indoctrination likely involved in it, but I just mentioned it in terms of that all the fields are different. You can't just treat them all the same in terms of like, it would be wise for people that want to have deceptions involved. If you have like a book and you have a bunch of pages and all the pages are truth, every page in the book is truth. If you're going to throw a lie in there, you might kind of open the book up and throw a page in there that's a page of lies and then keep flipping through the book. So it would make sense to kind of like slice or, kind of place the lies in there amongst other things. So I don't think every single field, like in a college where they have all the courses, like I'm not saying, I don't think anyone would say that every single thing in all those fields is false or indoctrination. There is obviously a lot of real stuff that's happening, but that's the question of like what part of it all is deceptions, or and then the indoctrination will go with the deception often, like we're going to put this deception in here and then train you that way. And then what parts of it are actually true. And I think that the shape of the earth question kind of brings that more to the forefront. Like, okay, we need to go through more of the kind of paradigm and really try to decipher like what's valid and what's not.
I mean, I think most of you guys believe that indoctrination, though, right? Because if I synthesize a novel substance that was predicted to be poisonous, like deathly poisonous to you, you wouldn't drink it, right?
This is kind of the point I was trying to make, though. I do understand a certain side of the argument you're making, but it's not what's it called? We're not indoctrinated to believe that if you drink bleach, you get incredibly sick, if not die. So we know this through direct cause and effect relationship. Whether or not that field of study has theoretical in it that can't be demonstrated or not, but certain aspects of it can. But the key difference with these things is in astrophysics, astronomy, etc., you don't have a cause and effect relationship. You have observations, theoretical, and claims. There's no, I mean, even when you say there's practical, getting a telescope and looking up the sky, my 4-year-old can do that. Whether or not he has a better telescope.
Yeah. So how are people able to predict novel events like the Shoemaker-Levy comet hitting Jupiter? If
Okay, but again, yeah, that's
how
fine.
is a
That's
novel
fine. But
prediction like that made? If orbital mechanics and all that stuff is all bullshit, gravity isn't real, how was the
yeah,
impact of Shoemaker-Levy predicted? Right, amateur astronomers around the world saw that great spectacle in the 90s, right? Because it was predicted. It was a massive astronomical event, right?
Yeah. So obviously, there's certain people that want to entertain those arguments. I'm not just completely like wiping it away, but I'm of the sort of thing where like until we're talking about the ground that we're standing on, the sky could be like completely different. It could be balls up there and dodecahedrons and whatnot. But if the thing we're standing on is what's in question, yeah, what's up there is to a certain aspect irrelevant until we establish the ground, right? And that water doesn't curve. So how do you have a floating ball? That's my point, right?
Yeah, how do you have a
But the
sunset on a
prediction,
flat Earth? I don't know. It's a big good question.
well, the sun's moving away from you. It's perspective. You have a local sun. It's
Okay,
very simple. Like, yeah, I mean, even when you see a ship disappearing
I
away from you,
see the
yeah,
entirety of the circle of the sun, and then 2 minutes later, it just disappears. It gets cut off, and then a few minutes after that, the sky gets completely dark. That's not at all what I would expect to see if it was literally like if it was like a
yeah.
massive light in the sky that was getting further and further away. It wouldn't behave the way the sun does, right? What we would see is we
What do
would
you
see it
mean by that?
shrinking down. It would be getting over the course of many hours. Over the course, it would just get darker and darker and darker. Eventually, it might be pretty dark where we're at, but we'll be able to look in the distance, take out a telescope, and oh, look at that bright object that's far in the distance. That's the
No,
sun that just moved away on the flat Earth.
completely disregarding atmospheric conditions now and all that sort of stuff, right? Like you can
And
just see
that's how like a light
infinitely.
bulb would behave. And if I took a light bulb into a giant pitch black auditorium or warehouse, right? A
Yes,
giant warehouse. That's how it would look, right? The light would be big and
correct.
round and bright, and then as
Yeah,
it moved
yeah.
away, it would get darker and darker where I'm at, and then I would
Okay,
still
but
be
then
able. I would see the ball getting smaller, the light bulb getting smaller and smaller. It would be
Yeah,
in the
but
distance. It'd be on the far side of the warehouse, but I could easily still see that there's a light in the
okay.
distance there.
Okay, but first of all, Jake, have you ever seen the sun as a ball? Tell me, where is the ball?
I mean, it's a circle from all sides of the earth. I've been all over the earth. I've been in northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, and it's always looked like a circle to me. There's only one shape that I know of.
You've
There's only
never
one
witnessed
shape.
either the moon or the sun as a ball. You've never
There's
seen
only
that.
one shape that I know of where no matter what angle you see it from, it's always a circle, and that's a sphere. There's no other shape I know of that acts that way.
That's just a guess.
yeah, and I just want to be hyper specific with the warehouse. Yes, in completely clear conditions potentially, but not an infinite warehouse. You're talking about a closed system, an exact square meter space, right? An infinite warehouse. You're not going to be able to see that because the further it travels away from you, the smaller it does appear to your eyes. Your eyes cannot see forever. Now, in that warehouse, even in a closed certain square meters, if you add a certain level of fog or smoke, and then you have different densities of that fog or smoke, you're not going to be able to see it, right? So, and that's what you're disregarding when you're talking about the Earth. You have clouds, all sorts of things.
Yeah, but I mean, even just doing the trigonometry at any distance of you can put the sun at any distance on the flat Earth, and the trigonometry will never work when it comes to what the angle of the sun is over the horizon at any given distance on the flat Earth. It just doesn't make any sense, right? The fact that you see the circle of the sun, and then 2 minutes later it's set, and it suddenly starts getting dark very, very quickly. When just a few minutes earlier it was bright enough that you could easily you know see everything around you, read a book, etc. And then all of a sudden it gets super dark. I think it's a lot more indicative of something that's getting blocked, of a light being covered up, than a light that just went too far away, right? Unless you want to say that just the sun is magic on the flat Earth that has magical properties. If you just say that, then I'll agree with you. Then you can have a magic sun on the flat Earth that has mystical and mysterious properties. I don't know why flat earthers don't just say that, because at least that's a lot more logical.
Well, I mean, this comes back to exactly what I said before. The only thing that's separating us is a belief system. And this is a reoccurring theme with people who believe in the heliocentric model. It's a constant, oh, it makes sense on the globe, but it doesn't make sense on like, I don't know which flat earth model you're referring to when you say it wouldn't work on there. You have to present that model first and then show how it doesn't work on that claimed model.
Just, okay, it being flat is a model. I know flat earthers hate to acknowledge that, but just saying it's flat is a model. It is a model of the Earth. right? It's the beginning of a model when you say that it's flat, just like it's the beginning of a model if you say that it's torus shaped or spherical shaped, right?
But do you even understand the key difference in like globe and flat? Like globe is a shape, that's a claimed shape of the Earth. The flat is that we're on a plane, so therefore it can't be curving away from you. There's no claim of the actual shape, and they're two different things.
Plane
One is
is
a
a
shape.
shape.
Flat is not a shape.
How could flat not be a shape?
Because flat is a descriptive term of the surface. It's not a claim of the shape. Like globe is not that's a shape itself. A square is a shape. Triangle is a shape. For example, like nobody's saying the Earth is flat and it's a square. See how they're two different things. You could say the globe is a dodecahedron and it's a consistent wave pattern across the entire surface of the Earth. You have two things. Like the globe claims a shape and then they describe the surface, topography, canyons, etc. But
I'll
flat
read you
is
the
just
definition of
describing the
shape.
surface.
A shape is the form, outline, or physical configuration of something. It defines how an object is bounded or organized in space.
Yes, now get flat definition. You got to pair these two. You can't just use yours.
What is the definition of flat?
A surface that is level, smooth, and even without noticeable curves, slopes, or bumps. Now we all understand what we mean by flat. Okay, it's not Bolivian salt flats across the entirety of the Earth, but you have a base. Regardless, you have a baseline. And when we're talking about flat, we're talking about how we build on this Earth, how we travel the Earth, and the most important fact is that at no point does it begin to curve downwards away from you. And if you were able to walk in a straight line, I mean, if you give yourself 3 kilometers each side variance, right? Even if you gave yourself that if you walked in a continuous straight line, you would end up exactly back where you started.
So I typed in here, is flat a shape? Yes, flat is a category of shape. Flat shapes are more formally known as 2D shapes or plane figures. These shapes have 2 dimensions, length and width. They have 0 thickness. Examples of flat shapes include spheres, circles, triangles, rectangles.
Yeah, those are flat shapes.
Shapes with depth or thickness are called solid or 3D shapes.
Yeah, those are flat shapes. That's not just the word flat is a shape. Those are specifically flat shapes. Things that are shapes that are also flat.
You know, like when you have a piece of paper and you draw a square on a piece of paper or a triangle or a circle, that's a flat shape because it's a 2D surface. But say if you had a cube in your hand, that would now not be a shape. It would be a cube. You're not describing the surface. If you were describing the cube, you would say the surface of all sides of that cube are flat and level. But the shape itself is not flat, right? Would you call it flat? Or would you call it a cube?
Well, so here's the thing.
Just answer
Unless
that
you
question,
think that the flat Earth,
that question, please.
What's your question?
Like if you have a cube in your hand, do you call it a cube or would you say it's a flat?
I would say it's a cube because it has characteristics
and that's
of a
the
cube.
difference between the flat Earth and the globe Earth. That when you say flat Earth, you're not saying it's a cube. You're describing the surface.
So
yeah.
So here's the thing. Maybe I'll agree with you that the flat Earth isn't. If we said that the flat Earth is infinite, I might be able to more agree with you that it doesn't have a shape if you believe in an infinite plane, because it doesn't have a boundary, so it's kind of an undefined. If it has an undefined boundary, I think it'd be hard to call it a shape. But if you
The
believe that
whole
the
point is
flat Earth,
not to believe in
if you
something you
believe,
have no idea if it's true or not. It's just
but if you
believing in
believe the
something doesn't
flat
make it
Earth is
true.
finite, then it would have to have a shape, right? Just like I live in California, right? California has a shape. That shape is not a 3-dimensional shape, right? Like if we look at a map and we look at it, right? Obviously, the actual state has a bunch of complicated topography, right? Rivers, lakes, valleys, mountains, right? Shorelines, but it has this shape that with the way we cut it up as far as to set the boundaries of it, right? To set its boundary limits. So the flat Earth would absolutely have a shape if it's not infinite, right? It would have some boundary that we would call a shape.
But Jake, what shape is California?
California shaped.
It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
shape of
exactly.
California.
Good
That's the name of the
answer.
shape.
So there's no reason to even try to restrict shape to it when you're calling it flat. That's the point.
But I
Yeah,
will
Jake.
say,
Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead. I will
Well, I was
just
just
say,
gonna say.
no, you go now. You have to go now.
No,
Yep.
no, you go.
Okay, I was going to
Like,
say
like
I respect him making a concession there and saying he would agree and whatnot. But the point is, yeah, if it was infinite, then yeah, you don't really have a shape. But yes, if regardless of whether it's flat, potentially there is a shape. It's a dodecahedron, star, whatever you want to call it. But this, what's being said is that flat Earth itself isn't making a claim to the shape. They're not claiming to know the shape. They're
Yeah,
describing the surface.
just
Yeah.
your base axioms. We all experience at a stationary level. You know,
So-
to say you believe in something is a problem. That's what got us into this.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is, Jake, if you just like, you just arrived in a huge warehouse and you're just there, whether you're born, if you want to use that analogy, or it's like a video game, you wake up and you're in a huge warehouse. You don't know how high the ceiling is. You can't get there to touch it. You don't know if there's any walls because you walk in every direction, and you haven't been able to reach a wall yet. So you don't really know the ceiling shape, quote unquote. You don't really know whether there's an extent to it. You've only dug down, I mean, what they say, they've gone down like, 7 miles or whatever. So like you've only dug down, to the limit you have, and that's it. So like if someone's going to ask you like, hey, what is the shape of this warehouse? Like unless you've been to the extents or been able to measure that, you wouldn't really be able to know, other than maybe like, an out of body experience or psychic abilities or
well,
something
I
else
would
like
be
that.
able to.
But hold
if
on,
I-
let me finish up. But what you would be able to do potentially is establish the ground. Like, is it moving? Is it curving? And then you could go from there. So, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, I could establish whether the floor was flat or curved. I could compare how I move across the floor with how the ceiling changes. It would have all the characteristics of a physical object, right? So it would have those. It would have discrete characteristics that would match what the shape that I'm walking over. I'd be able to start mapping out that aspect of the warehouse, right? Even if maybe for some reason I couldn't explore all of its extents.
Yeah, are you saying like if there was lights in the ceiling, you'd be able to try to? I mean, I would say
Absolutely.
humans were using the lights to navigate on a planar surface for eons of time. So I think if it was a globe, they would have, at the very beginning, they would have been like, "Oh, this is a globe from day one," because once you do even just some motion, movement in celestial navigation, you would have realized you can't make a map on a flat surface. You have to actually make it a globe to fit the actual distances and everything. So that's a whole separate argument, though. But if you want to take the analogy further and say there's also lights in the ceiling, you could try to establish if the ground is curving or not, or if it's in motion. You might not be able to get to the extent of the whole thing to know like the shape of the whole realm or the whole place you're in. But I think that was just kind of what was being discussed, is like there's one thing to kind of go with what we empirically can establish in terms of what the ground is and whether it's moving or not, outside of like knowing the entire like map or the entire shape. I think the map can kind of be part of that too, because same thing, if you were in a huge warehouse and there was some water sections and some ground sections, like, to map the whole thing, like if you make that equivalent to the earth, would be a huge project. But then you could add to the warehouse thing, but there's a bunch of televisions around telling you you're on a globe, you're on a globe, you're on a globe. And that's kind of the institution of the globe that I think earlier was being brought up, that it's like this whole kind of system that you have to get on board with. And I mean, if you think there's any empirical proof of it, I guess you can say those points if you think there is, but it's like
Well, I mean, we have a picture of it from space. You guys are just going to say it's fake, but you have no evidence that it's fake. So where do we go from there?
I think there's a lot of
That's not
evidence.
how claims work, though. That's not how claims work. It's on you to demonstrate validate your claim. It's not on us to disprove your claim.
I mean, how would I demonstrate
Yeah,
for you?
hey, Jake,
What would I have to do
name
to?
one
What
thing.
would I
Name
have to
one
do to
thing that's
demonstrate to you?
self-evident.
What would I have to
You
do to
can't.
demonstrate to
You
you that
can't.
pictures from space are real?
You can't, and
Jake,
that's the
the
point.
thing
The only
is everything that's self-evident tells us it's not moving.
Yeah, like if you
That's
take that
self-evident.
analogy, in the warehouse, we're in this huge warehouse. Okay, let's say there are lights in the sky, and if we could go do a bunch of independent, taking angles and measuring things, we could both come back with our data and say, hey, I just did all this navigating. I was using this light and that light, and I was able to establish the ground is, this or that. So that would, yeah, but that would be one angle to go. But the analogy, I guess, is that there's like a bunch of televisions in the warehouse that are telling you it's a globe, it's a globe, it's a globe. And so when you say something like pictures from space, I mean, we're both standing in the warehouse. You're saying, hey, these televisions over here are telling me like that they took a picture of it. That's got to be what it is, And then other people are saying, well, I'm not just going to buy that, like that. There doesn't seem to be curvature and motion, and so I guess that would
What
be the
people don't
analogy.
realize, Gio, is that besides the only twice a year when we have the equinox, there's never in any celestial body, the moon, the sun, the stars, there's never a ground position ever on Earth because there can't be unless it's on the zenith at the equinox.
What do you mean?
Well, you can't
The
have a
moon and the
ground
sun is
position.
at
How can
somebody's zenith at
the
all
sun is
times.
93 million miles away, right? That's what you claim. How can it have? You tell me when can you have a ground position of the sun? Tell me.
The GPS when it's directly overhead, and the moon and the sun is always directly overhead for somebody
Hang on.
the Earth.
It has to be directly overhead at what time of year? One day a year.
No, anytime at any given moment, the moon or the sun is directly overhead for somebody on the Earth.
Directly, meaning like once a year. Otherwise, there's no ground position. No.
Not once a year. What do you mean?
How do you get a ground position?
It's whenever that object is directly over your head.
It has to be only once a year on that particular day. That's how you can get a ground position because it's straight above you, straight directly in line with you. When it's not, then it's not over the Earth. The Earth is really tiny compared to the sun, right?
Yes, but
Yes,
for
I do.
any moment on any day, the sun and the moon is directly overhead for someone, and for people that live in between the tropics, the sun will, like for example, on this example of the sun, for people that live between the tropics, the sun will be perfectly at their zenith twice a year, not once a year.
You're not getting trigonometry, man. You're just not understanding trigonometry.
What
You're
do you mean
looking
I'm
up
not
just
understanding?
because you can see it in the sky, it doesn't mean that there's a ground position.
That's how the ground position is defined. The ground position is when the object is directly overhead.
When you
That's the
move, that ground
definition of a
position
ground.
is going to change. That ground position is endlessly changing. If you move over the surface of the Earth, that so-called ground position that you've got is endlessly changing. There's only one time when it can be possible, once a year.
That's like saying that because a race car is on a racetrack, its position is constantly changing. Yeah, because it's a moving object. The race car is always at a discrete point on that racetrack, but it is still following that racetrack. And if you just sit there, it's going to pass that same point, at after a certain period of time. So I don't understand what your point is on that.
The difference with the racetrack, you know the distance. The sun, you cannot prove that.
The ground position is irrelevant to the distance.
It's totally relevant to the distance.
Like if an airplane, like the ground position of an airplane, the altitude of the airplane is irrelevant to its ground position. Right?
The airplane is something that we can measure. We know the distance.
Well, it's just you that's claiming that we can't measure the distance of the sun, but that's not something that I agree with. I think there's multiple ways to measure the distance
That's
of the
why
sun.
they use That's why they use a protractor, which has got a flat baseline and then it's got a curved top, 180 degrees
Wow.
at the top of each one of those latitudes. Then that's how you're establishing your ground position. But it's only an apparent ground position. It's not an actual ground position until once a year at equinox.
I don't know why you keep bringing up equinox. Equinox would just be when the sun is over the GP for people that live on the equator, like in Quito, Ecuador. The sun will come directly over their head during the equinox twice a year, right?
Yeah,
The
so if
equinox
it's
is
off
twice a
to the
year, not once
side,
a year.
like if it's off 1 degrees or half a degrees, like it's a straight line in space. Yeah, where is your ground position? You can't
It's just going
pinpoint
to
it
be
because it's always
the sun is bouncing between the tropics, and at any given moment, it's directly over somebody's head somewhere within the tropics. Right now, at this moment, the sun is directly over somebody's head somewhere between the. Now, it might be out in the open ocean, so it might just be a ship, or it might be open water. Maybe it's above a dolphin's head rather than a human's head, but it's directly overhead at a discrete point over the Earth at any given moment.
Yeah, the only way you could say that if the sun was local and small.
No, it's irrelevant whether the airplane is a small airplane or a giant airplane, and it's irrelevant if it's at 80,000 feet or at 5 feet. The ground position is the same. I don't know what the size or distance of it has anything to do with the ground position, right?
If it's not within our atmosphere, it's always going to be apparent. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't think that the sun and stars having GPS means it's a globe at all. And that's what E1 used for his dual pole line, lining up the stars with the ground.
It literally proves the opposite. It literally proves that it must be flat to have a GP.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that.
I mean, you bring up the equinox. The sun is directly east for all observers on the meridian on the globe. I don't understand how that would be possible on a flat Earth with the local sun. How could you have it due east for all observers on a meridian? How does that work on a flat Earth? If that's an obvious proof, how does the equinox work on the flat Earth?
I don't understand your question.
Yeah, me too.
The sun is directly due east for all observers on a meridian on the equinox. For everyone on a meridian, the sun is due east. How does that work on a flat Earth?
The dual pole work with that.
What?
I'll put my sun gift with the explanation pasted underneath it. I think you've probably seen it 100 times.
I don't see, even the dual pole doesn't explain that. The dual pole has no explanation for how the sun can be due east for all observers across a meridian from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere at the time that it rises.
Why would you think that? How do you know so much about the dual pole?
Because I can understand sight lines on a map, right? I can look at the dual pole map and see that obviously the sun cannot be at the same direction for everyone on a meridian on the dual pole.
Well, it rises south of east during the winter for the northern hemisphere, and it rises north of east for everyone in the southern hemisphere.
Yeah, but on the equinox, it rises due east for all observers.
Yeah, actually, this GIF had to make a larger, wider area, so it looks like it goes exactly across the celestial equator, and then it would start to either veer south or veer north, and it gets out far enough. But yeah, the illusion is that it goes straight across, but actually, the sun is never at zero latitude, at least according to E1 and what the nautical almanacs.
Yeah, that's because the equinox is a discrete moment in time. And so on the day that we call the equinox, it's always obviously for most people on the earth, it's going to be at the minimum minutes to hours from when the actual equinox took place. So the sun will rise slightly north or slightly south by a fraction of a degree. It would only rise due east for an observer where their sun happens to rise at the precise moment of the equinox, where it will rise due east for them.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what I'm saying. So a little bit north or a little bit south.
Yeah, but we're talking
when it's right
about the difference being a fraction of a degree, as opposed to there's just no way on any flat map to explain how all observers can be looking in what would be obviously very different directions and all be seeing something in the same direction, right?
Well, for you to say there's no way, but then admit that it goes a little bit north or south every time, and that's exactly what I was saying. Like you've exhausted all the possibilities. We already know it's flat and stationary, so there has to be a way. Bro.
Yeah, but it's only off from east by a fraction of a degree, right? A fraction of a degree, whereas on any flat Earth map, it's going to be obviously many, many degrees. 45 degrees.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
We'll pull up your flat Earth dual pole, and
Did you see the GIF?
imagine.
Did you see the
We'll
GIF I just
imagine a
put?
sun rising. We'll
Did you see
imagine
the
a sun.
GIF?
What's
I
that?
already put it in the chat. Let's look at it. I put the GIF in the chat with the explanation.
What time? You cut out.
It's the sun put it in the chat. It's in there for you to look at with the explanation. I just made it go twice around the north and twice around the south, so you get the idea. It's not perfect, but that's the basic idea of how it would have to work.
Okay, that's not the sun. That's just showing a pattern of light. So
Yes,
how could
that's
it
it.
be?
That's all.
The sun is supposed to be a discrete object over the flat Earth, right? I mean, you guys don't even like the fact that we say the sun is 800,000 miles in diameter, right? The flat earthers say the sun is small and local, right? That's what I hear flat earthers say. So if the sun is a small and local object, how can it appear in the same direction for observers across the earth on the rise of the equinox for all the people on that meridian?
It's basically what according to what his concept is, and what it seems to be with the GPS of the sun, because all he did was to find out the GPS of the sun.
You are breaking up, Dave.
Oh shoot! Let me
Yeah,
put the Wi-Fi back on.
I wouldn't have said anything if we could partially hear you, but it was like full robot. Yeah, maybe give it a sec. I want to hear what you're saying though.
Better now? Better now?
Yeah. Yep.
Can you hear me now? Okay, yeah, it's the Wi-Fi cutting in and out. Yeah, he used basically like when you see the sun, like our full day, and whether in the north or south, the day is when it goes across the celestial equator line. You either see it rise, due from the south or from the north, depending on the season. And like the daylight hours are basically when it goes across the middle, and then that's um, closer to the equator for the equinox, and then it starts to veer either north or south for the season. But yeah, you can see the sun pretty much anywhere on Earth when it goes straight through, that middle area, and that's your day and night, and that's why you have like shorter days for the wintertime in the north because it's veering south rather than veering north. It's funny today. I was just looking at how accurate that is. Like in my back porch, you can't see the sun during the.
Yeah, he's breaking up.
Yeah, he didn't have east marked on his map either. He just had the sun. So it doesn't explain the equinox, Jake, I don't think, does it?
So if you look at that map, I don't know if he's still here. Oh, did he drop? Oh, looks like he dropped.
Do you agree that the only reason why we can compare the North Pole and the South Pole is because we have an equator? If we disregard the equator, you won't be able to compare them.
Well, we have an equator because the sun is on the GP of the sun is over the equator at the time when there's equal day and equal night for all areas on the earth. Everyone on the earth experiences an equal amount of day and night for their day, and the sun is over that. The sun is over the equator at that time on the equinox, and it rises due east and sets due west for all observers on the earth on that meridian, or for all observers on the earth. And at any given moment on that meridian, when they see a sunrise, everyone on that meridian sees the sunrise at the same time and at the same direction, cardinal direction. All of
You
those
know what
things
those
only
lines
work.
on Dave's map, on the lines that go around this Antarctica, the South Pole, right? Do you know what those lines actually represent? Like, what is it? Is it some type of magnetic field or what? Would you agree?
I don't know what it's supposed to represent on this.
They are magnetic. There's the magnetic field. So you're following the magnetic lines. So like Just because if you're at the bottom of the map there and you just continue going down, right, away from Antarctica, like you still have to follow those magnetic lines. So it's not like a Pac-Man world. It's still in reference to the North Pole and those magnetic lines at the same time.
Thank you. Good vibes. And Jake, to add on, I guess the equator would probably be where where we see these star trails diverge. So it's probably in between where the star trails are diverging, I guess, right? Potentially.
Well, yeah, because that's that's based on the rotation of the Earth, right? That's why we see the stars do what they do from that location.
Unless there was like a dual rotation in the heavens, but yes, I guess, yeah.
But they aren't actually. Remember, we had that discussion. They don't actually diverge. That only looks that way on a time lapse with a fisheye lens. In reality, the proportions stay the same through the course of the night. The stars don't diverge and converge. But the bottom line is the GP of the sun is over the equator on that map that he posted. That gold line, which represents the equator, the sun is traveling across that line on the equinox over the course of the day, right? The GP for all observers on that line, they're going to see the sun pass directly over their head at some point during that day. At their high noon, the sun will be directly overhead. And the
Right, and
question is,
you can see that it's a full circle right in the middle, right at the equinox in the middle. It's a full circle. So it's the entirety of all of the sun's rays all at one time. That's a perfect ground position, right? But if it's off center, which means it's not a perfect ground position. If it's off center at all, right, it's not going to be a perfect ground position. It's only going to be apparent.
Mike check. Can you guys hear me now?
Doesn't explain. Yeah, we hear you.
Hey, do you want to ask? Because you were asking him his question, but he dropped out.
I was going to say, Coco, so you agree, though, that on the equinox, the GP of the sun is over the equator, right? Over the gold line in your picture.
Yeah, it's the celestial equator, not the sun's equator. On that map, the sun's equator would be would run north for the winter and south for the summer. I mean, the opposite. It would be north for our summer in the northern hemisphere and south for the winter.
No, the line on your map is the actual is not the celestial equator. It's the Earth's equator.
No, it's the celestial equator. It's where the two star fields meet. And the stars do converge and diverge, run parallel through the celestial equator. Even stellarium shows them converging and diverging. It has nothing to do with a wide-angle lens or any of that kind of excuse. They do converge and diverge, apparently. I can't prove they do, but they do.
The angular spacing
Even stellarium shows they do.
over the course of a night.
Apparently, they do. Now, if you wanted to actually debunk the dual pole, you'd have to show them running parallel on the blue side of the ball.
Hold on, just to be clear, the spacing between the angular spacing between stars doesn't change over the course of the night, so the stars are not diverging and converging.
Actually, it does.
You
and if you get the
that,
star
right?
wheels, no, I do not agree with that. They actually do converge, literally converge and diverge, according to the Weems and Plath, which is the go-to nautical almanac supplier. Weems and Plath gives you these star wheels. E1 used those actual star wheels to make his own custom version that goes over his flat Earth map, which is aligning all the stars with the GPS. They do converge literally and diverge literally for it to work, because it's a stationary
that would
Earth.
mean the
No way it could work.
constellations.
Just like an electromagnetic field works. It's just
that
like
would
an
mean that the
electromagnetic field works.
constellations would change shape over the course of the night, right? Because they're converging and diverging. The constellations wouldn't remain the same shape over the course of the night.
Because the only constellation that runs right on the equator, the celestial equator, is Orion.
What are you talking about?
Orion is the only one that you can say has one star that goes on the zero latitude. No, they do not run on zero latitude. Show me one star that's actually at zero latitude that's not of the 3 stars of Orion.
I don't think Orion is on the 3 stars of Orion is not on the celestial equator. I don't think.
There's one of them. One of them is at 0 latitude.
Maybe one of them in Orion is. There's stars that
That's
are
what I
on the
said.
celestial equator, but the bottom line is those
Okay.
constellations.
We tried.
Whether we're talking
We were in
about
here.
whether we're
We
talking
were in
about
here trying to find
Cassiopeia
one of a
or
0
Orion
latitude.
or whatever whatever constellation you want to talk about. If the stars were converging and diverging, those they would not maintain their shape, and their angular separation is exactly precisely the same. If I take a picture right when it rises, if I take a picture right at high noon, and then take a picture right when it sets, the angular separation will be absolutely identical. Yes, Gio, we've talked
Yeah,
about
because
this
it's
before.
either in the
That's a
north or
time
in the south.
lapse.
Because
Gio,
it's
that's a
either in the
time lapse,
north
and
or in
that's
the south, Jake.
what's that?
They don't change. They don't change, right? You have the northern ones and you have the southern ones. None of them are at 0 latitude except for the 1 star of Orion, as far as I know.
What you have?
So
What do you mean?
they
You have
don't
the
change.
entire
They
zodiac
don't
of
change.
constellations.
They don't change because they're either a northern constellation or a southern constellation. That's why they don't change. But in relation to each other, they do, and that's what the Weems and Plath will show you. But they have the wheel, and it's almost like they made it up to have the north on one side and the south on the other. At least this is what Ewan was saying. It's almost like they knew that if they showed them separately and they put them together the way he has, that then the plotting of the positions of the stars actually would show you they literally do separate and then converge again. And that's from the north and the south. So you would never see constellations shifting because it's either a northern constellation or a southern
Well,
constellation.
wait a minute.
But if
Aquarius,
you actually
Leo,
measure them,
Pisces, Taurus,
measure,
Virgo, all of those are on the celestial equator.
they're either of the north or the south, as far as I know. Show me one star that has a GP that's on 0 latitude, besides one in Orion. Look up the nautical almanac. Get your nautical almanac out.
I don't think there's any star in Orion that's precisely on the celestial equator. It's probably off by a little bit.
Maybe that's not true. Maybe there's none. So that proves my point even better.
There are hundreds of stars on
Regardless, if you're claiming that the stars are converging and diverging, then we would expect these constellations to be changing shape over the course of the night, and they don't.
It's because they're either in the south or the north,
angular
bro.
distance between the stars, the angular distance between the stars remains precisely the same. Well, I shouldn't say precisely. Obviously, when it gets like within a few
In the
degrees of
north
the horizon,
and in
you
the
can
south
get some refraction that can distort that angular separation. But for the rest of the
you're
sky,
not listening. You're not listening, bro. It's either the northern constellation or a southern constellation, right? They're separated.
which one?
Now,
Is Virgo a
relation
northern?
to each
Hold on,
other,
is
they
Virgo a
stay
northern
consistent.
constellation or a southern constellation? Which one is
I
Virgo?
don't know. I'm not the expert on that.
It's an equator. It's on a celestial equator. That's why they make up the zodiac. That's why, depending on the time of year that you're born, you're that zodiac, because that's the constellation over the celestial equator at that time.
And, well, there's another thing to keep in mind. There's the way that they read the stars. It's all in relation to the prime meridian, right? So you can't really even get like a star wheel, like Weems and Plath. They don't really show that. They show it usually just like an orthographic view, or just like almost like a Pac-Man when they show like the stars moving through the celestial equator. And that's when we get all our star readings. So they would be in line with each other. If it's a northern star and a southern star that are aligned as they go through the celestial equator, that may be. But you can see the Milky Way itself starts to spread out. The Milky Way stretches out. According to E1, he thinks the Milky Way, what we call the Milky Way, splits apart, and part of the Milky Way goes off from the other part of the Milky Way, and then it comes around and realigns through the celestial equator again. So all our star readings are based on that. And the way to debunk the dual pole would actually to go to the middle of the blue side of the ball out there in no man's land, where they plan on crashing the ISS at Point Nemo or whatever. You'd have to have like star sightings from there showing that they actually run parallel on the other side, right? But for the dual pole, they split apart, and that's no man's land, and that's how they tricked us. They made us think that it actually closes up like a ball, but it's just a flat ball basically. It's a electromagnetic field.
So I posted a picture showing the constellations and where they lie in relation to the celestial equator, which is that outer ring. And you can see that all those constellations, they're not northern or southern constellations. They all lie over that's why they're used for when people are born. It lies directly,
Sure.
they lie directly over the celestial equator. And those things,
But you'd
they
have
do
to show
not
them.
change.
Right.
The,
They wouldn't at the
those
celestial equator. They would be parallel through the celestial equator. You'd have to show them when they get past the celestial equator, where the reading would be in the middle of the blue side
What
of
do
the
you mean? They're
ball.
never past. They're always on the celestial equator. I don't know what you mean by past the celestial equator.
As they rotate around, they all rotate and funnel through and then go on their
Yeah,
way.
but they
What are you
rotate.
talking about?
When they're moving. You can just imagine spinning that wheel. Their position in relation to the celestial equator does not change, right? Just the part of the
No,
celestial equator that
but
we're
in
looking
relation
at
to each
is
other,
changing.
you could,
But like exactly
yeah,
where
but
Aquarius
if
is
you,
bisected, like for example, exactly where Scorpius or Aquarius is bisected by the celestial equator, that does not change. They don't hover above and below that. They're always at precisely that location. And the angular relationships between those stars from rise to set does not change either. So there is no converging or diverging that you claimed earlier.
there is. They converge and diverge. You're talking about a reading where it's at the celestial equator when they're actually running parallel and they stay equidistant from each other. And then, like the GIF I just put in the chat, they obviously
Would you like
converge
to
and
make a
diverge.
wager on it?
They show
Would
that they converge and diverge. No, I'm not going to
Would
talk
you like to
about
make a
money. It's
wager that
obvious,
we can
dude.
take a picture of any of those? That we can take a we can take a picture. I have the
You're not even
equivalent picture.
understanding what I'm saying, so I wouldn't recommend betting at this point. You don't
Well,
even
you're
understand what I'm
claiming
talking
that these
about.
stars converge and
Look
diverge,
at the
which would
GIF.
mean that the angular relationships between those stars would change, which means that constellation shape would change over the course of the night,
All
right?
right, just look at the GIF I put in the chat just now. Are you saying that's just a wide angle lens making that illusion?
Yes, because that's a time lapse with a wide angle lens. But those stars, the angular relationships between those stars don't change. And I can prove it. And I'm willing to put a wager on it and prove that we can take a picture. We could take a picture and not change the focal length or anything of the
Jake,
picture.
you're not even getting it, Jake.
Not change at all the angular width of the picture.
Jake, it has nothing
We
to
can
do with a
see
wide
that
angle lens.
the angular distance between those stars will remain precisely the same, whether we take it shortly after they rise, in the middle of the night when it's at its highest point in the sky, and shortly before they set. Obviously, you're going to get some distortion near the horizon due to refraction, but outside of that, over the course of the night, those are not they're not going to be changing in their shape or their angular
Jake,
separation between all the
you're
stars
not
and
even
constellations.
understanding. You're not even understanding what I'm saying, dude. They have to change. They have to converge and diverge. Show
Okay,
me
well, let's put a
star
wager
trails.
on it. Let's put a
Wait,
wager
no,
on it. What we'll do is
no,
we'll
wait,
take a
Jake,
picture at three
stop.
times.
You shouldn't bet because you don't even understand what I'm saying.
Okay,
Show
well,
me
then just
a
take my
non.
money. Just take
Wait,
my
hold
money
on,
then.
wait.
Why don't you just take my
No, I'm
money
not gonna. I
then?
wouldn't do that to you, dude. Your IQ's too low. I would feel bad. Okay, listen.
That's me.
Show me
Well,
the
I do
star
have a
trails
low
without.
IQ.
Show
I've
me.
mentioned that before.
I know you always brag about that. Show me the star trails from the north and the south without a wide angle lens that doesn't show them converging and diverging. Show me that.
How would you get
They
the
circle
north
around the
and the
poles
south
on
without
their
a wide
own. They
angle lens?
circle around their
You
own
would need to
poles.
have 180 degrees of the horizon covered.
No, just as they go through, right, where they go through the celestial equator and then they start to spread out, just like we always see them do. That's not just an illusion. It's not just our eyes playing trick on us. Even Stellarium has to include it because that's what they do.
Take any snapshot in Stellarium and measure the distance between the angular distance between the stars, and they will never change regardless of where you place over the course of the night, whether the constellation is near the horizon, whether it's high up in the sky, or it's near the end. The angular separation between those stars will not change.
This is what an equatorial mount does, right?
I'm not.
If you
I'm
have
not
an
saying that they
equatorial mount
change
structure
in the north and
stays.
the south.
Because think about it like this: like if you have an equatorial mount that's tracking the sidereal rate, and you get a constellation in your star field, like you get a constellation that's in your lens, that you're looking at that constellation from right when it rises to the entire night until it sets. It will always stay perfectly in your lens, and none of it will never morph or change shape or anything.
It depends on where you're taking that from, obviously, but you
What?
don't get it still, Jake. You don't get
No.
it. It depends on where you're taking your star trail footage from, right? If you're anywhere near the celestial equator, they're going to look like they're running parallel, equidistant to each other. But when they get out further west, they separate, and then they come back around and sync up again,
No,
like an
that's not
electromagnetic
true.
field.
No, that's
How do
not
you how can
true.
you how
There's
can
nowhere
how
on.
can you prove
It
that?
doesn't matter where on earth you
How
do
can you
this.
show me that's not true?
There's nowhere
Yeah,
on
I mean,
earth
you
that
can
you
say
do this.
stellarium closes up the ball to make it seem like they run parallel on the blue side of the ball, but we don't have solid proof that that's the case. We just see them converging and diverging. No matter what we do, we can never get star trails that don't look like they're not converging and diverging. You can never do that. I've never seen one northern southern star trail example at all that doesn't show them converging and diverging. It's necessity because that's what they do. You can't show me anything different. I would take your money like just a villain if you try to make a bet about that. That's the way they always appear to do. You can't
Yeah,
show me any of them that don't look like they're converging and diverging. So
it's
that's your point is down the drain, bro. They all look like they do that.
So if that was true, then the constellations would have to be changing in their shape over the course of the night, or they would look different from the constellations would have a different shape for different locations on the Earth. And none of those things happen. Those constellations,
But
if you can see them,
that
if
would
they're
be
over
from
your
areas
horizon,
we don't go
if you
to.
can see
That
them,
would
those
be
constellations.
observational areas that nobody's at. From the observational areas we have, they wouldn't change. But once they go around and they go up in those areas that we can't even see, then we wouldn't know if they're running parallel to the north because we don't have them converging.
If you're
We
claiming
don't have
that,
them running parallel there.
if you're claiming that if you're claiming that they are actually converging and diverging in reality, because we see that in a wide angle time lapse of the star trails.
No matter
If
what
you're
you do,
claiming that they're doing that
show
in
me
reality, then
the
obviously
non-wide
those
angle one.
constellations, the angular separation between the stars that make up that constellations, would be changing and morphing that constellation over the course of the night, especially for different observers at different locations on the Earth. But they're not. Those constellations remain precisely identical. Anywhere on the Earth
Jake,
that you could see them, they remain precisely identical. If you took a picture of them,
You're still not
you
getting
wouldn't be
it,
able to
Jake.
Jake, if
tell
you're in
where
the
that
northern
picture was taken
hemisphere,
from.
you
Show
only
me
see one circle.
Jake. It's not a wide angle lens thing. They all look like that. You can't show me a non-wide angle lens star trail that doesn't look like that. So your wide angle
I
lens
just
thing is
showed you
out the window, bro.
I just showed you something in new perspective. If you
Okay, what?
have a equatorial mount and track the stars throughout the night, the position of the stars relative to each other does not change. They all have the same angular spacing, which is what Jake has been
It would
saying.
depend on which stars and where you are when you're taking those
No,
readings.
all
That
of
would
them.
make that at all a valid statement.
This is the fundamental principle of operation of an equatorial mount, is that it is rotating in sync with the stars, and the stars do not move. Their declination
Which
does
stars?
not change through the night.
Which
Yeah,
stars?
isn't it aligned with
Any
the
of them.
northern?
All
Which
of them.
stars are you talking about?
All
I mean,
of them.
look at all the star trail videos the gifs or the images. All
Did
of
you see
them
the
show
two?
that the stars circle around either the north or the south. They must converge and diverge, right? They necessarily
No,
do.
no.
Yes, because we're on a flat Earth and they circle around us like an
No, they
electromagnetic field.
don't.
That's
But
what they
that's what
do.
we're trying to tell you. You could point that
Oh,
equatorial
but you'd have
telescope
to. But
anywhere in the
here's what
sky, and you'll get the same video that is posted there. The star field will remain precisely the same
you're
as the
saying.
ground
You could
appears to
show
move
me.
underneath.
You could show me images where they don't look like they converge and diverge in the star trail. Show me that. Every star trail footage of
It's
north
in
and
the
the south
video that he just that
shows
it's
it
in
this
the
way.
video that it's in the video that Daza posted. You clearly see that the star field does not change one iota over the course of the tracking.
Which star field? The north or the south, or the north and the south? What are you talking about?
This one looks like a southern one.
Yeah,
This one
because
looks like a
we're
southern
being
one.
specific
Okay, so
here.
the southern one's not going to change in relation to itself. No, neither is the north. It's their relation to each other. The northern and the southern converge and diverge in relation to each other. So they're
Yes.
consistent within themselves, but each of them in relation to each other, if you get to a certain point, you will not see them at the same, they will separate. Even the Wiens and Plath wheels show that they must be at a different distance from each other, but that's not the way we read stars. It's all according to the prime meridian. And if you're going to look at the data, it's going to show just that area that we're used to reading them from, which is right through when they run parallel. And you would never notice that they're separating until you get to a certain position way out in the middle of the blue side of the ball. If you're giving me readings from the middle of the blue side of the ball, they show us, then you'd have a point. But that we don't have that.
I mean, I don't know what you want. I mean, you can just look at the videos that he's posted that show how the
I don't know
stars
what you
moving
want.
across the sky, and literally the stars remain precisely the same. It's the whole principle of an equatorial mount that allows us to point the telescope at
You
any
guys are talking about
location
two
in the
different
sky.
things.
Jake, are you saying that the video you're going to show me shows the northern and the southern stars that just go straight out and they don't look like they converge and diverge at all? You're showing me that? Because
No.
they run parallel through the celestial equator, sure. But then when they go out to the outside, to the west, they're gonna diverge. That's what they
They're
always
actually not
do.
even.
Every single Star Trail video or time elapse footage you get is going to show that. It's consistent. Stellarium even shows that. Why does Stellarium show that?
Technically, they're not even parallel at the equator. They're like nothing is going on the actual equator. Like even the sun on the equinox, it actually passes over the equator. Sort of like if you're in a car and you're changing lanes, it's like passing over it. It never actually goes right on it. And the stars are either arcing to the north or to the south, and then they meet at the equator. But you know what I mean? Like none of them are actually going parallel. They're all actually slightly. They're still slightly diverging, like just a fraction south of the equator and a fraction north.
Yeah, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Yeah.
Technically arcing towards the north or south. It's like a symmetrical mirroring.
So do either of you understand what an equatorial mount is actually doing? It's just rotating around an axis, right? So you have an axis aligned with the Earth's rotation.
It's moving to follow the moving sky. Sorry, go ahead.
But it aligns with...
Its angle is fixed, right? It rotates at a fixed angle. So all of these photos that New Perspective is showing are through a lens, right? So they're not tracking an individual star's angle. They are tracking the image of the star as it's projected through a lens onto a flat surface. And this is why you get these weird shapes. But if you actually measure the angle relative to the equatorial axis, the angle is constant throughout the night.
What your videos show is nothing like Jake is saying exists. He's saying it's a wide angle lens effect. When we get the star trails from the north and the south, and you get them exactly like all those pictures show, has nothing to do with the wide angle lens or any kind of optical phenomenon. It's just what they apparently do. There's no denying that, Des.
So do you agree in those two videos that I posted that all of the stars move in synchronization with each other, that their spacing does not change?
Yeah, that's not my point. That's not my point.
Yeah, you
We're
guys
talking
are
about the northern
things,
and the southern. Yeah, the northern converge and diverge from the southern. But within each northern area or southern area, they're going to be consistently and the same distance away from each other. That's not an argument.
Welcome, Jin, CBR1, and everyone listening.
Hello.
Oh, good day. Welcome to
Great to hear your voices, and especially the New Perspective. Long time no hear. In good form, as I hear. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, my dear sir.
Okay, I found a time lapse of Orion moving across the sky on an equatorial mount, and you can see that none of the stars, and you said that this happens on the equator, that they're going to diverge. You can see that none of the stars diverge a one iota over the course of the tracking.
They don't. Through the equator, they stay the same distance from each other. And then as it goes out to the west, they diverge away from each other, just like all the star trails go.
No. You will not find any equatorial tracking anywhere on the internet. You will not find any track anywhere that shows stars ever changing in relation to one another over the course of the night.
They must, dude. They go around their own pole. You can't even draw it out, a picture of it that doesn't work, that doesn't have it that way. A perfect ball, maybe, but The oblate spheroid wouldn't even have them perfectly that way. So your oblate spheroid, could be conceived as a perfect ball, but it's not. It wouldn't even be that. So all of that would be messed up for you anyway. It's the warping and bending of the electromagnetic field that gives us the oblateness of their movement and the way they look.
I don't know where to go with this. I mean, it's obvious that the stars do not change over the course of the night anywhere in the sky. Their shape doesn't change. The angular separation between them doesn't change.
You're not even getting my point. It's obvious. All star trail of the north and the south make them appear to do exactly what you're saying they obviously don't do.
Yeah, maybe the equatorial mount is fixed on an axis point, and then furthermore, it is has I don't know what the field of view is, but it might not be able to capture that divergence per se.
But if you take any image of the stars throughout the night, right? So even if you go out and get your Google phone in astro mode and take a picture of the stars, pointing anywhere you like. You can point at the north celestial pole or the south celestial pole, the equator, and you track those stars throughout the night, the spacing, and you center your photo on one star, spacing of all of the other stars around it will remain the same as you track it through the night.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Either in the north or the south, they do that. But if you were to get the right position,
Anywhere in the sky perspective, anywhere in the sky.
If you go to the north, you go to the south, you can see they don't separate. That means everywhere it's exactly the same, which is not something that you could prove or show right now in any.
So look, here's Orion over the course of the night. Here's Orion. You can see that those stars over the course of the night do not change one iota. They don't converge or diverge. They stay precisely next to each other, the same exact separation over the course of the night. And now I'll find one for you for the Big Dipper if you want, which is a circumpolar constellation.
24-hour footage. You got 24-hour footage of Orion. I'd love to see the 24-hour footage.
How would you have 24-hour footage?
Exactly. That's the point. You would never know if they converge and diverge unless you were at the right spot where we see them apparently, no matter what you do, because you can use whatever lens you want. You're never going to get them not converging and diverging. Has nothing to do with a wide angle lens.
Hold on a second. You're claiming that we're seeing them converge and diverge over the course of the time lapse of the star trails, which means that they would be converging and diverging over the course of the night. Which means that what I'm showing you wouldn't be possible because we would see those stars spreading out and coming closer together, and you would see the constellation.
When they diverge, they're over areas of that we don't even know. We can't even access those areas when they start to diverge. We can see them starting to diverge.
If we're seeing them in the time lapse, which is the only difference between these two, is one is a time lapse, right, where the camera is stationary, and one is where it's following the rotation of the Earth, right?
Jake, where is that time lapse being taken place, in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, or the equator?
It doesn't matter. It would be the same for all locations on the Earth, and it doesn't matter where it's pointed at the sky. It will always be the same.
You can't say it would always be the same. We don't know. We haven't. I mean, I think it's a lot more land than we even know about. But the areas that we're in, when we see the stars, we just see them run across the celestial equator, and we see them converge in and diverge, and that's what they apparently do. But I mean, that's just what they apparently do. No matter what you do, no matter what lens you use, that's what they apparently do. No matter what, even in stellarium, they're converging and diverging. Now, through the celestial equator, they're distant from each other in the north and the south. It can stay pretty consistent. But that's what I'm saying. It's consistent through the areas that we have access to. And then we see it starting to diverge. That's always what we see.
Sorry, new perspective. You're saying we can see this in stellarium as well?
Yeah, stellarium shows that.
I know Gio's got Stellarium. Maybe he can do it on a desktop and show us what he's talking about. You still have Stellarium running on your desktop there, Gio?
I've got a screenshot of what I'm talking about too. Gio,
yeah, I was going to try to do. Yeah, if you have that, thank you.
I'm kind of doing something, but also listening. I mean, I could pull it all up, or anyone else could as well if you guys want to. But yeah, I mean, Stellarium shows the the stars. The thing is that, or shows the two rotations, because when you have a northern rotation and a southern one, they're going to meet in the middle. So of course, there's going to be a converging diverging effect because you have two circles that meet at a straight, at a straight point in the middle. I mean, essentially it's straight, although the northern stars are still arcing a little bit to the north, and then the southern to the south. But the thing is, on a globe Earth, let's say, if you were on the equator, like 1 degree north of the equator, all the GPs of those stars are going to go along at 1 degree north. And then 1 degree south of the equator, all those stars are going to be 1 degree south. And if you were to go on 1 degree north and start traveling west, you would have to turn your vehicle or your boat a little bit to the right. That's called a small circle route. Anything that's not on the equator, so like 1 degree north, if you were to stay on 1 degree north and keep traveling west, that's a small circle route at 1 degree north. And you would have to turn a little bit to the right on the globe. So, and then if you went 1 degree south, you would have to turn your craft a little bit to the left to follow 1 degree south. So the globe describes it that we're on a globe, but the thing is, on a planar Earth, you also would have to curve to the right or to the left on the actual ground. So in both quote unquote models, you're turning your vehicle to the right or to the left. And because you're underneath the GP of stars at 1 degree north and 1 degree south, the fact that you have to turn right in the north and turn left in the south, that tells you right there that the stars are actually diverging. Now, when you interpret it on a globe, the claim is that it's the globe that's diverging, and the stars are really way out there, and they're a sphere that's way out there. So the globe describes it as if you're actually changing orientation as you curve. But that's the contention. But I mean, even on the globe model, it's just described a little bit differently, saying it's the ground that's curving, but you still have to turn your vehicle to the right. So whether you're on a sphere or a planar surface, that's why it looks that way, because the GPs of the stars are actually diverging north and south.
The GPs of the stars, yes, the GPs of the stars can be diverging, sure. Just like the sun.
Well, that's the stars. The GPs are just the ground positions. The stars, yeah. So you admit they're diverging.
No. They're not diverging.
The GPs at 1 degree north and the GPs at 1 degree south,
like the sun,
are all diverging. The GPs of all the stars at 1 degree north and the GP of all the stars at 1 degree south are diverging. You'd have to turn left in the north, turn left in the south.
That's not, yeah, but the GP is not, it doesn't tell you anything about the relation of those stars to one another. Like serious astrophotographers that are still doing it with film, they set up an equatorial mount with a film camera on it, and they'll do like a 4 or 5 hour tracking of objects all over the night sky, and they will still get pinpoint sharp stars, right? Whereas if those stars were converging and diverging, that means that they would be shifting and warping, which means that it would just be a blurry mess if they did a time lapse, right? They wouldn't get a pinpoint stars over a 5 hour exposure, right?
Nope. They converge and diverge. That's what they apparently do, no matter what you do.
So how is it that astrophotographers can do a 5 hour exposure and yet they still have pinpoint stars in their photo?
When you talk about 5 hours, that's it. When they're going through the celestial equator and running parallel to each other, yeah, you can get that 5 hours.
This could be
the equatorial mount is tracking the stars, is tracking the sky. It's going at the exact same rate as the sky. So yeah, of course you can get a pinpoint. It's going to track it the whole way, just like you can do with the sun.
Yeah, but you guys are claiming that the stars converge and diverge from one another, which means that you're going to have distortions over a time lapse.
No, nobody said they did in comparison to each other. It's that the northern diverges from the southern. It's not that the star. Well, man, New Perspective may be saying that could happen, like way out on.
No, I'm not. I'm saying exactly what you're saying. I've said it to him 100 times. The northern converges and diverges from the southern.
Right. Yeah.
That's usually the case in communication. Sometimes people,
even the globe represents it that way with the latitude line.
This happens. this happens in communication sometimes. Sometimes someone's communicating a message, it's just not being received.
I mean, I don't understand how you guys are saying on one end that the stars converge and diverge from one another, but on the other side say that no, they do stay in relation to each other precisely at the same distance.
No, it's
As they
like if
go
you
through celestial equator, and then then if you go way out west, as they go through that area right through the middle, they look like they're equidistant from each other,
But
and
I
then
can
they
show
start
you.
to spread out. They spread out just like all the star trails show us. They spread out. I don't know why you're denying what
Yeah, but
everyone
I can
sees.
show you if you want. Like I showed you the one from Orion. I can find ones that are circumpolar, right? And in none of those will you ever see any of the star field morphing or changing. The star field looks completely stationary in comparison to
Yeah,
the
if it's
moving
in the
Earth
north
underneath.
or if it's in the south, they're going to stay. They're going to stay equidistant from each other. If it's a northern constellation or a southern constellation, there might
Okay, well,
even be
what about Orion?
constellations where
Orion is a.
you see them where we see them run parallel through the middle, and then there's theories about Orion and those three stars. At least E1, he knows the stars better than anybody I've ever met. He could tell you where they're just the GP of a star is if you're in another country, and give you the time, and he has it all in his head. And he couldn't figure out if he said the only ones that he couldn't see are going either to the north or the south are the three stars of Orion. And he thought at least he couldn't track them. Maybe they go straight out too far for him to even, or too far for anyone to even get any footage of where they go. But they either go to the north or south. And the three stars of Orion almost seem like a Pac-Man where they appear in sync with the north and the south again as they run through the middle.
Right. So, according to you, then, since Orion, the three stars of Orion are kind of right there on the celestial equator, so then,
Yeah.
according to you, we should see on a time lapse over the course of the night, we should see, on the equatorial mount as it tracks Orion through the course of the sky, we should see those three stars get further apart and then closer back together because they're supposed to be
Well, that's the thing.
diverging and converging, right?
That's what E1 was saying. He couldn't find out where they go. You can only just see them go as far as you can go. And then you'd have to get out to the middle of the blue side of the ball or way out west or whatever, there is no ball. So wherever they tell us
But the
the middle of,
claim.
they stitched it all together. See, listen, Jake, if it's an electromagnetic field, right? And they manifest just like an electromagnetic field. An electromagnetic field has convergence, divergence, and then they run the circuit, and that's the way it looks. So that's the way it works, right? Most likely, that's what we're dealing with in the sky. It's an electromagnetic field that has convergence and divergence. Now, both the north and the southern stars may look like they're just, completely equidistant from each other for your whole time elapsed while they're going through the celestial equator. But then you'd have to get to the areas that we don't have access to actually show the separation clearly enough.
So you are saying you think they do actually separate at some point?
Well, yeah, it would seem you would think so, and I mean, it'd be hard to claim that without knowing it. But that would be their.
But
That's what
the
they show
claim
us.
is
That's
that
what
this is
Star Trek.
easily
That's what an
demonstrated on a.
electromagnetic field does.
The
An
claim is that this is
electromagnetic field.
that you can easily see the stars converging and diverging on a time lapse, which means it's not happening in some magical Narnia. It means that just you could set up your camera and easily see that the stars are all separating, diverging and converging over the course of the night on this time lapse of the star
Yeah,
trails,
that's what they always show. They
which
always
means
show them
then,
converging and diverging. So,
which means then that we should see this on the equatorial mount. We should see that constellation morphing in its shape over the course of the night, because that's what you guys claim is happening in those star trails.
What would be
See,
morphing?
look at this one. This is Orion right here, right? Which you said that I'm talking about only on the stars that are on the celestial equator are the ones that are converging and diverging. So show me where it starts to converge and diverge in this time lapse.
just look at the time elapse of any star trails. They always look like they're converging and diverging. I don't know what to tell you, bro. Show
Yeah,
me a
that's
time
because
elapse of the stars that doesn't show them converging and diverging. Show me that time elapse.
Yeah, that's just because we have it. That's just because of the reason that we have we have a wide angle lens that's showing
No.
lights moving
Show
across
me the
it.
one without the
It's the
wide
same
angle lens.
thing.
Show me the one
It's the
without the
same
wide angle
thing.
lens. Show me the one that doesn't show that without the wide angle lens, if that's your point.
Sure, I'll pull one up for you. But this is literally no different than if I use a rectilinear lens and I sweep it across a checkerboard, the checkerboard, the lines will remain straight. But if I use a wide angle lens, which is what people tend to do for these types of things, you will see that the lines on the checkerboard will appear to converge and diverge, even though we know for a fact that they don't converge and diverge in reality, right?
That's one example that's not going to really make your point, because you'd have to show me that they don't converge and diverge in star trails that are showing us way out west and way out east the way that they always appear to. They always appear to do that, no matter what lens you use. But Jake, if it's an electromagnetic field, that's the way it manifests. Those field lines converge and diverge and separate at the farthest reaches of the field, right? I don't think we can get to the area where the field breaks apart necessarily. That's the whole point. But if it is an electromagnetic field, right, and these stars aren't just like trillions of light years away, and that some of them are dimmer and some of them are brighter, and then they use that dimmer and brighter idea to say they're actually further away from each other, and because they're in the same field and they're moving at the same rate, then they could get us to think that it's the ball moving instead of the field moving. But they'd have to show that. But if it is an electromagnetic field, is my point. It doesn't work in a ball. Electromagnetic field never closes up on both sides. It's the way it works. It's just you see an electromagnetic field the way that looks. That's what we see in the skies here, Jake. I mean, that correlation has to be at least somewhat compelling to you.
So here's a time lapse. This one is not equatorial. This is polar. You can clearly see that the stars are not converging and diverging. They're just following a
Of
circular path.
course, because that's my point. My point is those are you can look at the north and you look at the south. They're not going to do that. But if you look at the north and the south together, they're always looking like they're converging and diverging. So why would you think that that's a good point? We're saying the northern ones stay consistent with each other. So do the southern. But if you look at the way when they go through the celestial equator and start going out further west, they start looking like they're diverging. Same with them coming in from the east. They look like they're converging. You can't show me anything that doesn't look like that.
So maybe we should progress.
Here you go on the equator. Show me where they're converging and diverging here.
Well, like I said, again, at the equator, they're going to stay parallel to each other. When you go further out west or you look further east, and you point your camera in that direction, every single time elapse makes it look like they're apparently that they're converging and diverging. You're not going to ever get any footage that doesn't show that, because that's what they apparently do.
That's because you
Through
can
the
only
celestial
capture.
equator, they're going to run next to each other. They run next to each other through the celestial equator.
We're
So
talking
again,
about.
I'm going to have to say it again for you. It's the same point I was making.
But here's the thing: is we're trying to capture something that's all around you on a two-dimensional picture is two-dimensional, right? And that's why you have to go whenever you start expanding the angle to capture the three-dimensional world that we live in, right? Which would be you're trying to capture the stars as they move, from 180 degrees from the north to the south. You're going to have to use a wide angle lens, which means you're going to have this distortion. You cannot capture 180 degrees of our three-dimensional reality on a flat two-dimensional plane, which is what a photo is, and not have distortion. And that's what you're seeing in these star trails. But in reality,
but you'd have to show them not
that's not
converging and
what's actually
diverging somehow.
happening. Because we know for a fact that the stars do not change in their shape.
You don't
The
know
star
that for a
field does
fact.
not change over the course of the night.
It doesn't
Okay,
change.
hold
But
on.
if you look at them in comparison from the north and the south at a certain point, they look like they apparently converge and diverge. You have to at least agree that that's what they apparently look like they do. Right? Now, whether they do that or not is up to you to actually prove that they don't do what they apparently do. So that's your dilemma, not mine.
I think that there's nothing that shows that better than showing all the equatorial time lapses where we would clearly see the morphing and changing of the angular separation of these objects if they were
No, you
morphing
wouldn't.
and changing.
No, you wouldn't. No, because you're looking at just the north or just the south.
You agree that there is no way to take a picture.
You're strawmanning the position. You're saying because they converge and diverge, we should be able to look at any stars and they should all converge and diverge. they should all be changing if you're saying they converge and diverge. No, it's just the northern ones from the southern ones that apparently converge and diverge.
There should be,
That's just,
according to you,
that's
there
just what
should
they
be
do,
some
Jake.
place to set up
There's
an
no arguing
equatorial.
on this point.
According
Yeah,
to you, there
Jake.
should be some place where we can set up an equatorial telescope on a time lapse and show the star field changing and morphing and the stars moving around within the star field, right? It has to happen,
No,
right?
that's a straw man again. It's a straw man again. You're saying that they all have to shift from each other like this. Oh, they're all just shifting around if you're saying that. No, everything we see is the converging and diverging, no matter how
Well,
you
if they're
try to do the
converging and
star track.
diverging, they'd have to be shifting around, would they not?
The northern don't shift from the northern ones. Southern don't shift from the southern ones. But the two fields themselves do seem to apparently converge and diverge. That's what they get. You can't tell me anything
So what's
different
the
than that
angular
ever.
separation in degrees of these two fields that you're saying where we would start to see the
That's,
separation?
that's a
How many
whole other
degrees are we
question. You
talking?
have to at least admit that's what they apparently do, or just it's pointless to talk to you.
They only do that on a wide angle lens because there's distortion in that lens, because
Show me
that's
one
the
without
only
the
way
wide
that you
angle
can
lens if they're not
capture.
doing that.
Because I can tell you from looking at stars my whole life, right? I've owned a telescope since I was
Oh
18 years
God.
old. I can tell you that I've never seen the star fields change at all in any way whatsoever. All the constellations, all the separations, the night sky never morphs or changes. It always looks precisely the same. All the constellations,
Well, of
the
course, if you're looking
relationships
in the
between
north
all the
or looking in
stars,
the south,
they never
I've said that
change.
many
The
times.
only place
I've
where you
said
see
that a
this
million
is
times.
on a
They would
time
never
lapse
change. They would
where
never
you're trying to
change unless you're looking
capture.
at a time lapse where they apparently do. Can you at least admit apparently in time lapse they seem to do that
On a
from the
wide
north
Yeah,
and the
angle
Jake.
south?
lens, you get distortion. It would be the same as sweeping a wide angle lens across a checkerboard. You would see the lines on the checkerboard converge and diverge.
Well, we have an electromagnetic field over a flat Earth, Jake. I'm sorry to break the news to you. It's not a ball, and that this actually proves it to some degree. And you're just denying it and trying to make up things that are straw man.
Jake, do you see the photo that I'm posting here? It was from the image or video that you posted. I created a line there with arrows. Do you see how that trail seems to be heading in opposite directions? I think that's what New Perspective is trying to convey here.
Yeah, but are the lines longer?
Yeah, when you have a clockwise and a counterclockwise, you're going to have a way in which those two rotations that are opposite have to interact with each other. Like if you had two watches on your hand, one of them was going clockwise, one of them was going counterclockwise. Obviously, those at the center, the clockwise are going to be divergent from the counterclockwise and vice versa. It has to be that way. The globe just has their explanation, and there's some overlap with the way they explain it, because I do think the sky has like a toroidal spherical nature to it above a planar surface, but that nature to it is how they're able to kind of interpret it as a globe. But I mean,
This
the
is what we're
stars are.
seeing
I
on a
mean,
time
the
lapse.
globe model. The thing is, the globe model describes it as like the train track effect, where it appears like they're converging or diverging, but they're not actually. That's sort of more like. I'm surprised you're not going with that argument, because that's what part of the mainstream kind of explanation is. Like, oh well, they appear to be converging, diverging, but that's like train track, because you're looking down the pipe of the train tracks at stars that are parallel, that are millions of miles away, or light years away, hundreds of millions of miles. So that's what they go with. They don't deny that they are apparently doing it. This whole claim of like
No.
it's only on a wide angle lens is like only something I've heard in Discord. That's not anything that's actually said. Like in terms of I mean, some wide angle lenses could cause some additional warping effect, but it is an actual effect that you can see with your naked eyes. It's not just about a lens.
And funny enough, Geo, their claim that they're trillions of light years away actually ruins the idea of the railroad track thing working. Like that gift they always try to show where the stars are close, and you can see that it looks like they might be converging and diverging, even though they're circling around really close to the ball. But because they made the close, they made the stars close in that gift, then that could be one of the illusions that could be possible. But because they're trillions of miles away, we would never see the railroad
No,
effect.
that's not. I mean, I don't know why Gio's bringing up what we're seeing in these. What we're seeing in these time lapses with these wide angle lenses is just the distortion from that. Trying to capture a wide angle view of a 3-dimensional sky on a 2-dimensional plane, you're going to have distortion. It's impossible on any 2D picture to capture 180 degrees of our world on a 2-dimensional plane. There's going to be distortion. It's just the way that it works, right? And Geo trying to say, oh no, but we see this with crepuscular rays. Yeah, that's because literally the crepuscular rays that are in the sky, we're seeing, it's just like the railroad tracks. The railroad tracks are physically closer to us when they're close to and further away. But when we're talking about star fields here, those stars are so far away that they're essentially the same distance. So it's not the same effect as the railroad track effect. That's not, and not to mention that all of you guys have looked at the night sky. Nobody has ever said, man, isn't it weird how Cassiopeia or Orion or whatever constellation, right? Like, oh, it looks different when it's on this part of the sky versus this part of the sky. No, it's always precisely the same.
Are they at Point
Cuvier
Nemo?
lives on the
Are they way
equator.
out? Are they way out in one of those islands where in the middle of the blue side of the ball when they're telling you that?
Yeah, does anyone here live on the equator?
Well, that is what they look like at the equator. This image here shows one example of more of like a picture. Although I don't know whether that one was like touched up. I actually don't know the complete source of that. But this one I posted earlier. I mean, if you just point your camera up at the equator, that's what you're going to see. They definitely diverge and converge. And this is what, I mean, this goes along with the globe model. Like if you put a bunch of like Christmas lights all around your room on every surface, and then you stand or you put like a ball and you put a camera on it, you spin it around, you'll get a clockwise and counterclockwise and a converging and diverging effect. So that is what's observed. There's different explanations for it as to the explanation of it on a globe that you actually tilt it, or the stars, like the GPs of the stars and their orientations as they wrap around a sphere. I mean, there is the explanation for it on the globe, but
So if this was true,
to say
Geo,
that they
if this
don't do
was
it
true,
apparently is not the case. That is
so
how
if
it's
this was
observed.
true, the three stars of Orion, of his belt, right? They're pretty much right on the celestial equator, right? So if this is true, if this is what actually happens in reality, then what we should expect is that if we measure the angular separation between those three stars, they will do what's
Not
in
while
this
they're on the
picture,
not
which is
while they're
they'll be
on the celestial
wider
equator.
when they're closer to the
Not while
horizon.
they're on the celestial equator, Jake. You have to get out further to actually see the separation. It's not like it happens when they're on the celestial equator.
Well, we could pick any stars in the sky and measure their angular
No,
separation. And
no,
they could be far
that's
apart
not
too.
any
You could
stars.
pick
That's
two
not. You have
stars
to
that
be at
are.
the right place. You have to be at the right place and actually showing them. It's what they apparently do. I don't know what you're trying to even say. You can't show me that they don't apparently do that. In fact, the star wheels from Wiens and Plath show that they actually do that because the positions change. If you compare the northern to the southern at a certain point, they would have to be further apart. They're right next to each other at the celestial equator, and then they spread out, just like all star trails show
Geo,
us that they apparently do.
can you pull up Stellarium so we could put this to rest?
Good idea.
Stellarium's still going to wrap it into a ball for you, but I'm not sure. Geo, they
Well,
show
you
them
just said
converging
that
and
it
diverging.
shows
How
the
do they
stars
know that?
converging and diverging
They
in
do.
Stellarium.
They do. But then it's made for a ball, Earth conception. So how do they handle that, Geo? I know they show them converging and
Well,
diverging, but
all right, so we could pull it up, but or like this GIF here. I know it has a bunch of other stuff. I think this is like from like a P Brain video, that YouTuber P Brain. So you kind of, if you wait like a couple seconds, it shows these like arrows bouncing around. But if you just let the GIF play out a little bit, like right after that, it shows basically what you see in Stellarium in like fast motion. It's looks like it's looking east. So just wait like 8 or 10 seconds after that GIF begins, and you'll see the animation. That's from Stellarium. You can see the diverging and converging effect. We could pull up Stellarium, but that's exactly what it looks like because you have a northern rotation and a southern, and they're going to meet in the middle. It's just a difference of interpretation. The globe claims that it's just apparent that they're actually far out there on a celestial sphere, whereas there could be other arguments in terms of stationary planar that they actually are an electric field actually above the Earth. It's not just an apparent effect; it actually is what the electric field lines, and how they're actually flowing above the planar surface. So it's like there's like a difference in like contextualization and like interpretation and explanation for what the effect is, but
But
the
this is
actual
just
observed
because we're
effect is
trying
what
to
it is.
capture. We're trying to capture what's essentially 180 degrees of view, or that wraps around you onto a two-dimensional plane. You understand that, right, Gio?
No,
But
in
when
this
you're
case, it's just
actually
everything
there,
above the
when you're
ground.
when
No,
you're actually
it's not about
standing
wrapping.
there, what's that?
No, it's just what's above the ground. Like in that animation, like the 8 seconds into that GIF I showed, it shows what Stellarium shows, and you see all of the ones on the left are diverging off to the south. The ones on the right are diverging up to
Yeah,
the
but
north.
we're probably looking at a pretty wide angle of the sky.
No, it's just looking.
Right.
Yeah, but you can see this if you just look west. You just see a portion of it. I mean, if you do a wide angle, you can see
Yeah,
a larger
I've
portion of
watched
it.
the
but-
stars my whole life. I've never seen them converging and diverging. I've never seen the relationships of the stars to one another moving further apart and coming close together.
Well, you should look at all the time lapse video from anyone that ever existed, and then you'll see them converging and diverging no matter what. So,
Yeah, and
whether
then
you saw in your life
find a
doesn't really
time lapse on
matter.
a tracking mount that precisely tracks the positions of all the stars relative to one another, and any location on any star and on any constellation, any star, anywhere in the sky, like any Messier object or whatever, and you will see that it does not change at all.
At this
The
rate, we're
north
never
or the
going to
south, that's
diverge from this
true. But
conversation.
the north compared to the south, they always do that. Apparently, Jake, just admit it.
Yeah, I mean, have you been to the equator? Like, this is another one I'm just pulling up here. I mean, if you just take a snapshot of the sky, you will see this. Are you claiming that's not the effect? You don't need any wide angle. You'll see it with your eyes, except the stars move slowly, so you have to be
It's
pretty.
perspective of the lens. There's nothing else to it. That if you measure the angles between those stars as they move across the sky, the angles between them does not change. It is only the perspective of making an image that causes these convergence and divergences. That's it.
Well, if you're able to measure them where they're diverging, they would be diverging, right?
Yeah.
The ones that you're talking about are consistent with each other through the celestial equator, and then they apparently diverge. You can't show that they don't do that.
You can.
It seems like they want to
Jake
die
has
on the
just
same
spent 2
Okay,
hours
you can
telling
say
you how
that.
to
You
do
can
it.
say that, but that would take quite a feat to show us that they never that they don't converge and diverge when everything that you can show us actually shows them that they apparently do. You can say it's an angle lens thing or whatever excuse you want. That's what they apparently do.
Which is, they apparently do it because of the lens, but they measurably do not do it.
Okay.
You
New perspective.
don't
They
really
want to die on
understand
this hill.
what the equatorial mount images show, do you? So the equatorial mount, Jake had one on the equator because it showed Orion's belt setting or rising, which means it had to be pointing at the equator at least anyway, or due east or west, and that clearly showed those stars coming up over the horizon with 0 degrees declination and not moving relative to each other.
Yeah, they run parallel through the celestial equator and then they diverge. You have to get out in the middle of the ocean, way out west or way out east, to actually show them with a significant amount of distance away from each other if they're coming from the north and the south. But if they're in the north of the south, are already running on the same track, then you're not going to get any of that, right? It's just the northern from the southern ones. I mean, look at the way they circle around. I mean, if you took the distance from one on, I mean, just the fact that they circle around two poles shows they converge and diverge. I know your ball idea makes you think that they're saying that in a perfect, distance from each other. But with an oblate spheroid, it wouldn't work that way anyway. So your
No, it doesn't
perfect
matter what the
ball
shape of the Earth
doesn't
is.
work.
It doesn't matter what the shape of the Earth is. If you're rotating, which is what is happening, relative to the fixed stars, their position relative to each other will not change as you rotate.
Okay, so if we're looking at an electromagnetic field, Daza, and it's not what you think for the ball idea, if it's an electromagnetic field, you understand what we're talking about, right? That's the way that converging and diverging happens. If it is an electromagnetic field, just like it looks, then that's what's happening.
No, there is no measurable divergence in the motion of the stars.
Well, you would have to go to just saying it doesn't really make it a thing.
You can do
You'd have
it
to
anyway.
actually they manifest like an electromagnetic field. To go against that would take a lot more than just saying, oh, well, they don't. I mean, just stating it, especially when it's obvious that it's a stationary Earth with an electromagnetic field above it. So I don't know what to tell you.
Find a single photo from an equatorial mount that shows any relative motion of the stars over a period of a night. Any.
All the star trails show them converging and
Star
diverging. So
trails are perspective artifacts, right? That's why they show the shapes that they do.
Can I just, this is from ChatGPT, but it's just the wording of it. It says here, looking in certain directions, the projections of the path seem to fan apart, diverge, or come together, converge, just as straight parallel roads appear to meet in the distance. Now that's just ChatGPT, but that is what is described in the mainstream model, is that just like the parallel, train tracks, same train track effect. And everyone would agree, if you're looking at the train tracks, yes, you would say, oh, those appear to be converging for sure. You would go out there and confirm that they're not actually converging, but you would be able to say that they appear to be. Now, the thing is, we can't go out to the stars, though, to confirm what they are. That's the difference. On a railroad track, you can go out there with a tape measure, and you can actually measure and say, nope, they're not doing that.
But you can measure the angle, Geo.
Technically, they could be.
You can measure. Here's the
You
thing, Gio.
could make them that are, but I'm just saying that the globe model doesn't claim that it's not an apparent observation. They just claim, like I said before, the train track effect and perspective, not just a wide angle of the camera, but simply that it's more like that train track effect. I'm just saying that that's what they say. I'm not saying I agree that that's what it is, but that's the interpretation that they're applying to it.
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT is going to definitely give you the wrong answer on this. But here's the thing: with those train tracks, I can measure the angular distance of those train tracks and show that they're drastically changing. Right, that angle is converging onto zero separation into the vanishing point. Right, that's something that's very easily done. But you can do the same thing and measure the angular separation over the course of the night of the stars of Orion or any constellation, or even pick two constellations on two totally different parts of the night sky and use a total station to measure the angular separation from them when they rise when they're over the middle of the night and when they set, and that angular separation will not change one iota over the course of the night. That's what we're trying to say here. It is not like the train tracks where you can measure the angular separation, asymptoting the zero into the vanishing point.
Well, the 0 point is a very big, long distance. I don't know if you can accurately pinpoint the 0 point because it's such a compressed apparent position of where the railroad tracks meet.
I think it would change at least 2 iotas.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just ChatGPT that says that, dude. This is actually right here from a textbook called Investigating Astronomy, and Investigating Astronomy, a Conceptual View of the Universe. The way they describe it, they say, stars appear to converge and diverge at the equator because you are standing at a 90-degree angle to the Earth's rotation axis. This makes stars rise straight up, curve across the sky, and drop straight down. It creates an optical illusion they are bunching together as they reach the sky's peak. That's how they describe it.
Is that because of the looming? Because I've heard that
And then this
stars
here,
on the moon.
Well, then the way
I've heard that stars on the moon appear higher than they actually are because they're of downward refraction. So maybe like as it's that looming effect should like spread it, right? So then as it gets further and it doesn't loom, then it would condense.
Well, they describe it as a celestial sphere for the globe model. Like if you were on a ball and you're on a ball and then all the stars are also a ball, but they're much bigger than you. So the celestial sphere is like a huge sphere of stars, and then you're on a little ball in between it. And obviously on a globe, the northern latitudes are going to arc up to the north. The southern latitudes are going to arc to the south. The only place it's straight is on the equator. So they just claim that since you're on the equator, you're actually seeing the much larger celestial sphere, and you're seeing that converging and diverging effect because you're inside of a smaller sphere, at which those stars going north of the equator and south, all the GPs. So, I mean, that's how they describe it. But the thing is, on a planar surface with an electromagnetic field sky that has the similar geometry to it, and that's why they can extrapolate it into the globe, would also have that effect. And it's just a matter of how it's interpreted. I mean, the thing you're saying, Jake, I don't think anyone's saying that the stars are changing in relation to each other. It's like imagine it's like a fabric, or it's like if you had like a a sheet or a huge sheet of paper and you draw on the sheet of paper all of the stars are going to stay in those positions. But there's two sheets of paper, basically. There's a northern sheet of paper and a southern sheet of paper. And the equator is where they're going to mirror and where they are going to, it changes from arcing to the north to arcing to the south. So if you just have like one sheet above you or two sheets, the northern and southern, then yeah, the individual stars are not necessarily separating, but the northern star at the same latitude will diverge from the southern star at that latitude as it moves through the whole field, because the northern ones are starting to arc up to the north to go up to do the same thing the 24-hour sun does in that way. The southern ones are arcing off to the south to do the 24-hour sun the other way. Well, even if you leave the sun out of it, just the stars themselves, they have to start arcing the opposite way so they can go around two different poles in two different directions.
So here's an example of a video that really emphasizes what the lens is doing, right? Trying to capture our three-dimensional world onto a plane. So you have this insane, this is like the ultimate distortion of this, right? Where literally it looks like you have two stars that start off next to each other, and then over the course of the night, they go far and far apart, right? If this was in reality what the stars are doing, then we would definitely see constellations just breaking up over the course of the night, drastically changing in shape. But in reality, we see that they stay precisely identical over the course of the night. On any equatorial tracking of any of the night sky, even a wide angle view of the night sky on an equatorial mount, we see that the star field remains perfectly stationary. It doesn't change at all while the ground moves underneath it, right? You see, or it moves through clouds, right? It's clearly moving across the sky. You see the star field remains precisely identical. And this is exactly what I'm trying to show you, that this is just an effect of the lens trying to capture the three-dimensional world onto two dimensions. But obviously the stars are not doing what we're seeing in this video. Yeah, I mean, what you're posting in those pictures, Gio, is just a slightly less wide angle version of what I'm showing, which is where literally it's 180 degrees. So it's capturing both poles within one two-dimensional frame.
No, dude, this is just what the star trails look like at the equator. No matter, I mean, the one you posted does seem like a very like intense panoramic type of lens. So yeah, that might be a 360 or whatever that is. I've seen that one. But I mean, dude, like this one right here, if you just like you just set your camera up, it looks like there's some water here and some land in the distance. If you were just to do a time lapse and just set your camera up, your P900 or whatever you want, and just like the star trails in the north are going to give that whole northern rotation. The ones in the south, the southern, and at the equator, when you're in the middle, like that one I just posted, that is how it looks. That's how the star trails will look. So you'll see the little part of the rotation in the north, part of the rotation in the south. It's not anything special about the lens. It's just how the star trails look at the equator. Why they're doing that? Okay, the globe claims because we're on a big ball and those stars are light years away and we're in a huge field of stars. Okay, that's what they're claiming. But from an electromagnetic perspective, they are matching like the same way a ferrocell and electromagnetic field lines. So from that perspective, we're just looking at an electromagnetic field. But I mean, that is what the star trails look like at the equator. You don't need any special lens to see the equatorial region and then a portion of the northern and southern rotations that are the clockwise and counterclockwise, as it were.
Why do you ignore the lens? You're witnessing something optical, and you're just gonna hand wave the effect the lens will have.
No, I think lenses. No, I don't know if you had just jumped in. If you're responding to me, he has been saying that the effect of the stars converging and diverging, the star trails appearing to converge and diverge at the equator, is only an effect of a lens. And I'm saying that it's not only the effect of the lens, because it happens with many different types of lenses, and it happens with your naked eye.
It doesn't happen with the naked eye.
Yeah, but you've just described a bunch of different lenses. You know what would be easier? Instead of fixing it to any particular point and time lapsing it that way, which by the way only gives you information that is never supposed to be like comprehended. You're not supposed to look in time lapse. That's not what they're designed for. So number one is kind of an erroneous example, a time lapse of the stars. But regardless of that, instead of fixing it to the stars and watching it do all the thing it does, fix it to the speed of rotation or the angular delta. And then instead, what you're going to get? You're going to get the Earth is going to do a weird effect. Whatever amount of the Earth you have in shot with your camera, depending on what lens and what setup you have. But all the stars are going to remain in their fixed location. What does that show you? what does that exemplify? Exemplifies what the guy's trying to tell you, I think, which is that this is an apparent observation that is muddying the waters because people aren't interpreting it properly.
Well, I mean, when you're in the north and you're looking at the Polaris and you're looking at the Big Dipper and all that, whether you do it with a camera where you like, allow it to do a time lapse where it can, take in light for hours, or you just watch the stars the way they move, they're all obviously making circles around Polaris. And then if you go all the way to the south and you look to the south, all those stars make circles around Sigma Octantis. But when you go to the equator, you see half and half of both rotations. And right when you look up at the equator, you get them converging and diverging, just empirically. Like, and if you pointed to one of the stars with your finger with your naked eye, it would make those paths. Just
So
like
what
they're
you're
making
saying,
circles around
what you're
Polaris.
saying is,
They're making circles
you know,
around Polaris, or they're making converging, diverging half rotations at halfway in at the equator, or they're doing the southern.
so what you're saying is, Gio, that if I set up an equatorial mount at the equator, like in Quito, Ecuador, and I focus I'll even use a wider angle camera, and then I focus it on the equatorial mount on Orion, right? Because Orion is right on the celestial equator, and we show it rising over rising over. What we should see is over the course of the night, we should see those stars starting to diverge in the field and then converge, and you'll see the warping and shrinking of the constellation.
I'm not saying
Right?
any of those
That's what
things. No,
that's what
because
would
an
have to
equatorial
happen. If
mount
what
is
you're
something
saying is
totally
true,
different. Like
if
these shots
what
I'm
you're
talking about are a camera just still, like a camera that's on a tripod. So the Earth is at rest, the camera's at rest, and then it's just doing the time lapse of the motion of the stars. A equatorial mount is just a mount that tracks the sky. So if you were to put an equatorial mount with a camera or some kind of device on it, that's just going to track the sky all the way through. There's not going to be any shrinking or changing. You're just tracking that portion of the sky because the equatorial
But don't
mount
you
moves
see how
through the
that's
sky.
relevant?
Star trails are with a camera.
maybe we are talking past each other, and maybe we'll come to an
Wait,
agreement
I can
here.
help. I can help. Do you not think it's relevant what you just kind of semi-dismissed, Gio? Because by fixing on the star or the constellation, whatever you're choosing to do, it's the antithesis or the opposite of fixing it to the Earth and letting the thing do its rotation. Either way, you have to choose something to fix. But if you choose to fix on the stars and be in lockstep with the stars, then everything else turns around. If it's in shot, right? But the stars remain static. But when you do it the other way around, the stars aren't static and everything else is static and the stars rotate. Those two examples are inverses of each other. Shouldn't that highlight to you that it's an effect rather than a reality, and that you're giving it way too much weight in terms of the conversation, for want of a better example?
Wouldn't the key point here be to ask the question, if you pick any two stars at the beginning of the night and take a sextant and measure the angular separation between those two stars, are we claiming that the angular separation between those two stars changes at any point throughout the night, or does the angular separation between those two stars remain constant the whole night?
They will diverge. They will not be constant at the equator. I think that's what we're trying to claim here. And welcome, Jesse.
Thank you. All right, so that's a very big claim. Is that the claim on the table here?
Yes, I've been arguing almost 2 hours on this now, and they're claiming that if you're looking at stars that are on the celestial equator, like the three stars of Orion's belt, which are pretty much almost bisected by the celestial equator, that over the course of the night they should converge and diverge.
I'm not saying that at all. I never said that. I don't think New Perspective said that either, but he'd have to speak for himself. I'm not saying anything of that sort. What I think we both said is that if you take a star from the northern rotation and a star from the southern, then yes, they will diverge. But if you take two of them in the north or two of them in the south, they won't.
Okay, so
But obviously the stars that are like, if you're right on the equator, when you look north, you see half of an entire rotation of sky, and then you look south, they're doing half an entire rotation. So yeah, those are obviously going to converge and die. If you took a star that was like right next to the North Pole and one that was right next to the South Pole, yeah, those obviously would. But
so if you measured the angular separation between them with, let's say, a sextant or something, are you saying that that measured angle between them would change throughout the night?
Which
No, I
stars?
don't.
Yeah, I think that's what.
The northern rotation diverges from the southern rotation, but none of the stars in their respective rotations diverge from each other in any way. They're
Yeah, we're
part of
not
like a
talking
field.
about.
It's like a
Yeah,
fabric.
yeah, we're not talking about the same stars within the same star rotation. We're talking
Okay.
about a star from the southern rotation compared to the northern rotation from the equator.
Right. I guess nobody understood my question. So do we all know what an angular separation is? If you can see two things from one location, then they have an angular separation, right? They're 10 degrees apart, 90 degrees apart, whatever, right?
Okay.
All right. And a sextant measures angular separation, right?
Okay.
All right. So let's say I'm on the equator and I pick a star that is, say, 45 degrees to the north and one that's 45 degrees to the south. So I'm on the equator. We got one southern star and one northern star. I measure initially I measure a 90-degree angular separation between the north and the south stars with a sextant, right? Those two stars have just risen. They're both on the horizon, and they were going to track along the sky, and then by midnight they'll be straight overhead, and then they'll set, right? So, Gio, are you saying that as I'm measuring the angular separation of that was initially 90 degrees on those stars, that will change throughout the night as those stars go up to overhead and then down the other way? Or not change?
I think they would change. What do you
No,
think, Jesse?
as they run through the celestial equator, they'll be parallel to each other and won't any noticeable change. But if you could get out like where Point Nemo is or wherever they, way out west or way out east in the cardinal direction, not west following a latitude line or around in a circle. But if you go way out, way out, way out, and then get your readings from there, then we could talk, because that's where they actually were separating. But through the celestial equator, you're not going to notice any change between the distance of the two.
Okay, I appreciate that. I really would like to hear from you, Gio, because you're the only one here with a master's in cosmology. This should be
Now you're
I
easy
just
think
for
it
saying the
you.
would
same
change,
thing
right?
I just said. We've been repeating it. You just got here. We've been the same thing over and over again. Both of them.
There would be some minor change due to the looming, wouldn't it? Because celestial objects close to the horizon, um, they're actually loomed up. So
Well,
there should be some change.
fortunately, I picked ones that were rising, so they're not going to be looming up. Isn't really going to change their separation that much. You know what I mean? Because we're
To
we're
Hey,
separate.
measuring.
Jesse, will you be at least you at least see that the star trail footage and all the star trails, the stars in the north do seem to converge and diverge from the stars in the south. They apparently do that. You can at least admit that, right?
Well, when you are filming them through a long exposure camera that has a lens that makes straight lines look curved, then yes.
Okay, so you're saying you could use a different.
You're breaking up. Or am I breaking up?
Oh, I said, are you saying you could use a different lens and they wouldn't look like that? Is that what you're saying? Show us that.
I don't think that's actually accurate, Jesse, because not all the straight lines are curving. The ones in the middle above the equator are going in a straight line. It's just what you'll see is, according to the Yale Bright Star Catalog, 51% of the stars are in the south, and the 49 or so percent rounded up or rounded down are in the north. So if you take one from the southern and one from the northern, there would be some sort of change. But what are your thoughts? Unless you have video evidence to make this conclusive.
I love these time lapse videos of the stars circulating around the sky, and I do have to say that while the star trail ones look like they're diverging, the videos that are just like you can see the individual star points doesn't really look like it's diverging.
Well, it's good to have someone else here with a master's degree in cosmology, but your mic is a little bit low, dude.
Sorry about that.
No, yours is just high good vibes, but it's good to hear you too.
Well, I don't think I
So
have very much to contribute on this. I just thought that the time lapse videos were super cool. So thanks to who's posting them.
Absolutely, right, and you'd have to go to different places on the globe or the planar world to make these observations. If you're only in the south, you're only going to see circular rotations. If you're only in the north, you're going to see circular rotations. But if you're at the equator, you could potentially catch them where they converge, where they meet potentially.
Well, anyway, Eden, in answer to your question, the angular separation between the stars, other than possible influences right close to the horizon due to looming, they remain the same throughout the whole night. And
have you done this at the equator?
No. The reason they appear to converge and deconverge in a long exposure is because the lens is projecting those spots onto the sensor at different magnifications at different locations on the sensor. For the same reason that if you point that camera at two truly parallel straight lines, they will also appear to converge and diverge just like that. And
Thank you, Jesse.
And this is also why, and I'm almost done. And this is also why when you make the camera track the stars, they no longer appear to change apparent spacing because any two stars are always on the same part of the sensor because the camera is following the stars. And so then you can see truly that they do not change angular separation throughout the whole night until they start refracting.
Also, what's another way, Jesse? Use your imagination. What's another way to do this to confirm?
You could go to AI and ask it.
No. What's another one?
I mean,
What's
if you look
a
at my
better one?
video, right, they have this is a whole compilation of different tracking shots. And it's exactly what Jesse is saying. I mean, it's inarguable that the position of these stars in the star fields do not change. It's literally no different than if we were to go inside the drum of a cement mixer and we were to put a bunch of stars, on the inside of the drums of the cement mixer, the positioning of those stars never changes as that drum mixer moves, right? But if we set up a wide angle lens inside that cement mixer, we would see the stars converging and diverging that are on the inside walls of the cement mixer. But in reality, we know that the distances are not changing, right? Because they're physically attached to this non-changing thing, the barrel of the cement mixer. And that's what we're trying to say here, that what you're seeing here is a visual effect of how the lens is projecting that light on the sensor over the course of the time lapse, right? But when you track the motion, like if you were to track the rotation of that barrel of that cement mixer, you would see that the position of these stars is not actually changing.
Okay, thank you. And Jesse, what
Yeah, that
other
was my whole
methods
point
can you?
earlier, man. The fact that the apparent divergence is in one instance when you're tracked with the stars, it's the Earth, and when in the other instance it's the stars, shows you that's in effect of watching something of a phenomena like it is, and it's going to affect the visuals rather than that there's something else going on. But I guess I used the wrong terms earlier because it went over everyone's head. It's just so simple, and I don't know why you give it so much weight. And it's weird that you have people who completely are diametrically opposed on what they think they're standing on, agreeing on a basic observation. And you got other people smoking like old reefer. What's up?
So Jesse, what's another way to make these observations? I think we already said one, right? I think you brought it up.
The fact that it's an observation should be the key factor. Why does it appear to diverge? Because you're observing it. You're observing
But
it over what? Over a course of time. That's not how it's over a course of time, and you're accelerating. You're accelerating the frequency. That's not what it's designed for.
Okay, thank you. My question is for Jesse is maybe we should make these observations from the equator, perhaps. You said you haven't done it, right, with the sextant?
Yeah, I'm a long, long ways from the equator. I tried to get them to move it, but they wouldn't.
Would you agree that doing it from the equator would be a good idea?
Yeah, but
It's
what's it
not a
going to
bad
change?
idea. It's not a bad idea, but like you don't have to do it from the equator.
Okay, thank
Give
you.
me a
At least
month, and
you
I could
mentioned
get you
the idea.
some equatorial shots. What of it? What's it going to change?
So what's your point,
What's the
Elisha?
purpose
Are
of
you
it?
are you just
My
here to
point is
ramble? Well, let me just
no.
finish here.
You
Are you
you
just here to
first of all
ramble
you
on
just
about
jumped.
why we
First
shouldn't
of
be
all
talking
you
about it?
first of all you just jumped in. So sit down. Second of all, my point was addressing what Jake was saying, just in different words, to get people to acknowledge the obvious. Which, by the way, from what I heard you say, is the same thing that you're acknowledging. So what's the problem?
How's this, Eden? Install Stellarium on your desktop or your laptop if you can, and that gives you a lot more options.
Are
And you
you
can
some
use
kind of
that
coward?
to, oh, for Pete's sake, you can use that to
Why
go
did you ask
any.
me a question
Oh,
and then proceed to ignore
I,
my response?
I
Are you a
said
coward?
Eden. I said I'm asking
You
Eden. I'm
asked
telling
me
Eden.
a question. You mentioned me by name. I responded to you in kind. And then what did you
Thank
do?
you.
You ignored me. Are you a coward?
Jesse, the guy showed it on. You already showed an animated GIF of Stellarium doing it. Maybe
Well,
you missed that part.
you didn't hear the rest of my sentence. You don't even know what I'm trying to say because Elisha won't stop cutting me off because he feels bad that I left him out. It's okay, Elisha. Pat yourself on the head. Someone will
No,
want to
I'm asking you
engage
a
you when you come
question.
up with an interesting topic. But
I'm
you
asking you a
can't just
question.
demand that
Are
other
you
people engage
incapable
you
of
just because you want to
answering?
be engaged.
No, first of all, you chose to engage me. Are you some kind of goldfish with no memory? What's wrong with you? I didn't mention you by name. You mentioned me by name. Don't
Yeah, you're like,
pretend.
it's like
Don't be a female. Don't try and rewrite the script just because it doesn't suit you.
you're just like insulting everybody. You have nothing to say. You're just insulting people. Like,
No,
why
I
don't
didn't
you let the
insult
people talk
anyone.
that want to talk about the
First of all, I
topic?
haven't
You're just
insulted
like,
anyone.
you can,
I'm making observational assessments. Second of all, you're the one who started with the ad hominems in the way you address my contribution to this conversation. So again, stop trying to remix it. If you want to change the subject, be a man and own it. Don't be a baby.
you done?
Are you?
All right, Eden. So what you can do is you can take Stellarium and you can locate yourself in different locations, including at the equator or wherever you want to be, and you can personally see what the angles between any two stars will be, and you can scroll through the night and with your scroll wheel on the time clock setting thing, and it's really cool. And Stellarium is very accurate because people use it with their telescopes all over the world.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. Yeah, Geo did post a GIF showing what it appears to do from the equator. But yeah, thank you.
And that converging star trail pattern is definitely what you get from a rotating observer, which I demonstrated with my cell phone. I'll get the picture. I rotated my cell phone with a long exposure pointing it at the city, and all the city lights formed this same converging, pattern. But of course, the city wasn't really converging. It was just the city lights.
I'm not really sure why this is even debated because, as far as I'm aware, most of the conventional flat Earth thinking was that the firmament was kind of like You can imagine like a glass sphere that surrounds the flat Earth, and that the celestial objects are like painted stars onto that sphere, and that
One of
sphere
many.
rotates. Right? That sphere rotates, so the angular separation wouldn't be changing, as Jesse and I are trying to describe, because they're physically attached to the firmament. So they wouldn't be changing as they rotate through the course of the night, as the celestial sphere rotates over the flat Earth. They wouldn't be changing, and any of these converging diverging lines are just a result of trying to capture the wide field of a three-dimensional, celestial sphere onto a two-dimensional pane, which is what a time lapse of a two-dimensional photo is.
Well, Jake, it actually might be a little bit more intricate than that. Think of like, do you know how you have a pool and you have the pool bottom, the pool floor? So think of like the ceiling, have a pool ceiling, but you would have the gases like hydrogen and helium, not as the pool floor, but just the medium below the pool ceiling. So the pool, the ceiling itself would be stationary, I suppose, because that would be a lot of friction for that ceiling to be moving as well. So I think that the dome itself is stationary, but the gases above are moving just because of the sun, and the sun is traversing that circuit at probably a really fast rate, probably 700 to 1,000 miles an hour, and that's going to probably influence the gases above.
Yeah, you're gonna have a hard time reconciling it if you limit yourself to just one lens or one firmamental lens. And you have to remember, you're observing from one point on the plane, and it has an
Exactly.
apparent rotation with respect to more than one point.
How would a flat plane take account into the two axes of rotation, where it's actually a single axis? But you get the idea.
It's an apparent effect due to the fact that you're watching something that's overhead through a focal lens, a domed focal lens that has that has multiple points.
Would you agree?
You're one observer, right?
Would you?
And
Would you?
depending on your location within the observation, you're going to appreciate different focal points with respect to its circuitry.
Would you?
The circuit of movement. Go ahead.
Would you agree that stellarium matches what you would observe on reality? It looks very similar. Is that a yes or no? Can I get an answer?
In a colloquial sense, probably, but it's not like I've investigated it. I've never used the software. I can only speak. I can only speak from like general common knowledge that I don't necessarily possess. What's the point of the question?
You should try it out. It's super cool, and you learn so much.
Yeah, I don't mind you guys being flat earther or anything like that. I respect that, but at least admit that stellarium is pretty accurate.
It's also fully open source. You can trace the entire code base to figure out why it's putting the star where it is.
What was the point of the question, though?
Yeah, this should be interesting. With a name like Skeptic Guy, how are you even skeptical of the government, or are you only skeptical of flat Earth?
Of course I am.
I'm an Aboriginal.
You think I trust my government? No.
Are you from the U.S.?
Yes. Some
Are
people
you in
here
the
know me
military?
already, so I'd rather talk about the flat Earth.
Okay, you're not ex-military, are you?
And also, my mic's cutting off, or I'm having internet connection issues at the moment. So, no, I'd rather stick to the subject.
Okay,
I would say that a lot of the Globers are pretty skeptical, especially about their government. Most people here are not like rah rah. Everything the government does is perfect and kosher, right? Like most of us come from a conspiracy background. Like I was a regular poster on Above Top Secret. I know Curved Water was also on Above Top Secret regularly. Like we knew all the same people. That's like a highly conspiratorial site, right? Clues form, stuff like that, right? We come from a conspiratorial background.
No, I get that, but let's treat this as a separate topic. Like government being like full of corruption does not mean that the Earth is flat or not. They might be related, but it's not entirely.
Yeah, I mean,
absolute.
I've often wondered whether it was actually whether it was a psyop. This information campaign originated from a government.
It's
Yeah, that's what I
absolutely
originally thought.
connected.
But
Well, playing the
It's
devil's
absolute.
advocate, you could call it a psyop, sure.
So, how skeptical of the government are you of the U.S.? Do you believe 9/11 was an inside job?
I'm skeptical on the government. I'm not skeptical on the shape of the Earth. We live on a sphere, an oblique sphere.
what do you think about 9/11?
That's not relevant to the topic of the whether the Earth is flat. I want to talk. I'd rather talk about stellarium.
I wouldn't mind talking about 9/11. I was really into the 9/11 conspiracy. That kind of, I think, was probably what really got me into conspiracy.
Nice, Jake. Yeah, I think that was probably one of my after JFK, of course. But 9/11 seemed a lot more as if there was a lot more evidence to show that it's potentially an inside job. At least the Americans were aware of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, because JFK, I mean, you're about my age. You didn't like JFK was like before our time. It was an interesting conspiracy, but it didn't really affect us. We weren't like it wasn't the huge deal that it was for the people that lived through it. But I lived through 9/11 as an adult, so
Yeah.
for me, it was like a huge event, right?
What do you mean it doesn't affect you?
Well, like I mean, I wasn't there when it happened. Like people describe how when they heard about JFK, they knew exactly where they were. Everyone remembers the moment that they found out about it. It was like a big deal nationally, right? Because he was, I guess, a very beloved president for the time, and so people it like really affected people. And then you had all the weirdness of, Lee Harvey Oswald didn't being shot on his way to court or whatever, and so it directly affected the people that were around at that time. But for us who were not born, well after JFK, then it's obviously
No,
not going
it
to affect
doesn't.
us.
It does affect you. Like with secret societies, running government policy.
Well, I mean, I don't mean it from that perspective. I mean, as far as psychological impact, right? Like, I'm sure for the people that were around Lincoln in the theater, it was a huge event, right? But for someone that was born 150 years after Lincoln, it's not going to affect us.
You're talking about in terms of psychological operation. Well,
In terms of like the psychological impact that it had, right? Like for people, for people that for Vietnam, right? People had brothers and sisters go to Vietnam and never come back, right? So I'm talking about that was obviously a very big psychological difference. Even though like the things the government did for Vietnam affect us to this day, I mean the psychological impact of Vietnam affected the people that lived through it very differently than the people that came after.
Well, the JFK